across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. This is, as I say, Talk. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is always great to have your company. I'm assuming you're free to talk to us and you're not currently being fired on by a Russian warship in the channel. It could happen to any of us. Well, apparently it really could. We are going to be talking about that today. Just extraordinary. 2 British APs taking a nice little leisurely cruise from the south coast of England to Cherbourg in France. Basically, we're seeing a clear escalation of tensions with Moscow. Why, though, is the British government so keen to play this down? This was extraordinary behaviour. We'll be talking to a former admiral, you know him well, Chris Parry, Rear Admiral, a former Royal Navy commander, about what happened and just how significant it is in just a little while. We're also going to be talking about something we were able to discuss with Lord Dannett, the former head of the British Army, when he was in the studio yesterday. But the British Chief of Defence Staff right now, Sir Richard Knighton, has warned that UK's armed forces will have to dial back training and operations if they don't get more cash. So we're not talking about not being able to buy new ships, but literally being able to do some training. You know, the stuff that they do so that they can actually fight when war actually happens. That would be quite useful for them to continue doing, wouldn't it? To keep us safe. I don't know, when, for instance, you know, Russian warships fire on us. Don't you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, we've got the Prime Minister this morning in an interview. He is fighting back, he says. He's not going to go quickly, people. He's not going to go quickly. He's saying he will fight on. It's not in the country's interests for there to be a leadership challenge. This after Wes Streeting yesterday made it very clear that he will make a leadership challenge. Still questionable whether he's got the 81 MPs to back him that he'd be able to do that. But there's no doubt at all, if Andy Burnham is an MP as of Friday morning, that a challenge from him will come very quickly. Some are saying within hours, but certainly within days. Prime Minister today says he will fight on. Also, small matter, the Channel coming in on news once again. More than 700 migrants, 710 in one day on Monday. The highest daily total so far this year across the Channel. Makes you wonder why the warship couldn't have fired on them. Little warning shot. Just saying, maybe we should take some ideas. Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts on the Prime Minister saying he'll fight on and how a leadership challenge is not in the country's interest. But I also want to hear really about this Russian warship firing warning shots at a British yacht in the English Channel. I want to know what Britain's response should be, because the MOD was there really playing this down. This is not normal behaviour. It does not sound like the normal routine things that they would do were followed. What is going on? Are we being constantly tested by Russia? And are we failing every single one of those tests? And could that prove very, very dangerous in the not distant future? I want to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call. If you've done the yachting in the Channel, you know what the rules are. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged the national rate. And text, of course, costs one standard network rate message. Benedict Spence, I'm delighted to say, as a regular now on a Wednesday, joins us. He's a Conservative commentator and I know big footy fan, and we will be talking about the small matter of England having our first, I mean, God, it took their bleeding time, didn't they? Play our first group match against Croatia. Not an easy start to our World Cup chances. We'll talk about that a little bit later with a TalkSport reporter as well. Benedict, just first of all, I mean, shots fired, not just in the Channel, also in Labour leadership. Yes. We'll get to that in 1 second. But because this is, frankly, whichever deadbeat, useless waste of space is leading the country under this Labour government, I don't think really makes much difference, or even to Labour's fortunes at the next election. But it does make a difference to us if we are not standing up to clear existential threats from the Russians. This Russian warship, I mean, it is extraordinary. We've got this couple, retired couple, Alan and Jane the Kelvey. They're on a little trip from the south coast over to Cherbourg. They're sailing along. They're obviously experienced sailors, and it's a bit misty, and they can see this very large Admiral Grigorovich, 409-foot frigate from Russia's Black Sea Fleet, and it's there in front of them. They say they are 500 metres away from it. the Coast Guard recommends you stay away from these big ships for obvious reasons, but their limit is 250 metres, so they're well far away from it. They're not on a collision course for it. They're clearly you're not crossing the channel unless you're an experienced sailor or, you know, a channel migrant trying to get here for your benefits and to, you know, sexually abuse our 14-year-olds. I'm just saying, different reasons for crossing the channel. But the warship didn't have a sort of, I don't know, I suppose, transponder on. Basically, ships are supposed to have a beacon on that shows everybody that they exist, and that's where they are. Didn't have that on. That alone, by the way, bit of a giveaway. This warship apparently has been escorting these shadow oil fleets, tankers from Russia to get their oil out through the channel for weeks on end. They fire warning shots. They absolutely terrify the living daylights out of this couple, who immediately just move straight away from it. They say, you know, there wasn't any radio mayday call. There was no notification to the Coast Guard that the warship said late afterwards that they were veering and they lost some steering control. But you're supposed to inform either the French or the British Coast Guard. They did not do that because they didn't want anyone to know they were there. They didn't use the Channel 16, which is the open channel on the sea. Basically, we've got a mayday call, you need to reach someone, that's what you do. They didn't do that. They didn't see any flares. I mean, what the hell are we doing having a Russian warship firing warning shots at a British yacht in international waters? The MOD, nothing to see here.
Yeah. Because what actually can you do in that situation? Listen, we have been talking at great length about the failures of the MOD for several months now, several years in fact. This stuff is not lost on the Russians. You know, it's not like they can't speak English and, you know, read what's going on in the British press. They are well aware of the limitations of our armed forces, of the Royal Navy. And this is a country that behaves as it wishes to, regardless of whether or not it's facing down somebody with a significant military or not. The only time I can ever remember in recent years the Russians actually playing by the rules was when the Turks shot down one of their planes and everyone went, oh, escalation, and the Russians went, absolutely no escalation, we will behave. Because strangely enough, they do respond to that sort of thing.
It's almost like how Israel knows how to behave in the Middle East and how you have to actually take people on.
Of course, this is one of the great lessons of the Ukraine war. All the Europeans say, don't do anything because it'll upset the Russians, and the Turks just shot down their jet, and actually, surprisingly, nuclear war didn't break out. But ultimately, I think that this also comes in the wake, of course, of the Prime Minister really going in hard on advertising the fact that Britain had sent special forces onto one of these shadow tankers, basically as a way of saying, look, we're taking this very seriously, you can trust us, we're all across everything. So what are the Russians going to do? They're going to go, all right, OK, what are you going to do? You're going to board an actual naval vessel? You're going to come and board a frigate?
And by the way, we only boarded a vessel that was not escorted by a warship.
Exactly, and this is the point. Having done this now for, you know, one can say, you know, morally correct purposes, but also the Prime Minister was publishing this for propaganda purposes, to say, hello, look at me, I'm taking it all very seriously. The Russians will now go, well, we're going to make things difficult, shall we say, for as many Brits as we can. Because what they want is similar, I suppose, to what's been going on in the United States with the US and the Iran conflict. They want ordinary people to start saying, you can't defend us. What are we doing in this set of circumstances? Is this in our best interests? And I think actually the Russians would be justified in doing that as a technique, you know, to try and strong-arm people, because we have seen how that's gone in the US. Plenty of what you might once upon a time would have been much more hawkish sort of people going, yeah, the US should assert itself on the world stage, just suddenly going, absolutely not, we don't want anything to do with this. If you're the Brits...
And good luck with that, by the way, everybody. See how that works out.
And if you're the Brits, and unlike the Americans, you don't actually have the kit, and you don't have the money, and you don't have the manpower, how quickly do we think it is before ordinary people, if this sort of thing does happen, they just turn around and go, actually, no, we don't want anything.
But this is it. But this is from this whole generation that we've got. I mean, a couple of generations now. You know, like mine have never fought a war unless you're actually, you know, serving soldier, the very small, fitting into Wembley Stadium right now. You know, fighting the Falklands or going to Iraq or you know, Syria or something. We have some Afghanistan, incredibly brave men and women who've been out on the front lines. But the reality is, most of us just aren't affected by war. And there's this whole thing: war is bad. War sometimes is necessary, and there's this idea that we can avoid a war by not escalating things. Well, let's talk to our correspondent Neville Chamberlain about that. I mean, I'm sorry, but people are just not living in the real world. Russia you know, like Iran, like also, and China, they respond to power. They respond to not just the willingness, but the ability to use force. You prepare your defences, you spend billions on your defences, you get them ready, you train your forces, you show a willingness to use them, and that is how you prevent the war. That is literally how it works. And it blows my mind that there is anyone in government, fair enough, voters might not deal with this. If there's anyone in government who doesn't know that that's what you have to do, they frankly should be, they're done for treason, because they're either idiots or they are actually just completely leading us down a garden path. I mean, look, we had Sir Richard Knighton, the current head of the Defence Staff, Chiefs of Defence Staff. We were quoting him yesterday after a Lord's Defence Committee hearing, where he's very, very clear. We're going to have to stop, some of our training, some of our actual deployments, because we simply can't afford to do it. This is madness. This is insane. We've got a Prime Minister who apparently is still sticking to ironically, his guns in the few he's got left. To basically stick to the current defence spending. I mean, all this like raising it 2.3, 2.6, I mean, eventually, whenever. The Prime Minister himself warned that by 2030, that our defence security people are saying we could be facing, a proper full-on military threat from Russia, not just these little games they're playing right now. And he's still saying that he wouldn't raise our spending to, anything where it should be even until sort of 2035. Not that he's going to be in office then, but this is an emergency right now. They're at the G7. It's just G7 is sort of closing down now. Got Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, and he's giving sort of a closing speech. But at the end of the day, we're no longer a serious power.
We're not, and I'm afraid that this is ultimately, when you've sort of reverted back to great power competitions. This is actually a failure of democracy, which is that it reacts far too slowly to these things, because people still believe that they're living through the peaceful era and that war is not a thing anymore. And so what you have now is a party in government which will absolutely not cut anything in terms of welfare spending, because that's what its voters want. And it actually almost doesn't matter how much they say, oh, we might need to start spending more on defence. People will actually turn around in those constituencies and say, no, what about me? You need to look after me in my day-to-day life first. And this is what I've been promised for however long. And this is, I think, as I say, it is a real weakness within democracies that Russia and Iran and China, they don't have to bother with that.
Can I just say, by the way, those working-class voters who are demanding more, well, they're not working-class, they're underclass, because the working-class work, by the way, do harder work than people like us sitting here in a studio. But the working-class voters, it's them and their sons who are going to be the ones who are going to be conscripted in a war, who are going to be sent to the front line. So, reality check, people. You're not actually doing these people a favour. That I'm afraid is the reality. Again, this abject weakness of our Prime Minister and failures of the last few Tory governments. Let's not deny that. We can go a long way back on this. But again, you get the deal you've got at that moment. You can say, look, they were willing to do all their lies about, we got in and we saw the books, £22 billion black hole. They should have also gone, and we've seen the security threats. And I'm afraid we're going to have to up our game on this front. What I love about this, British couple, Alan Kelvey and his wife Jane. They said, we would have fired back if we had some weapons. We love you. We love you, Alan and Jane. You wouldn't have. You scarpered quite rightly, as you should do.
The MOD might have said the same thing. We'd fight back if we had some weapons.
Yes, too. Exactly. The irony. I mean, we're laughing, but this really isn't. It's much more serious. Meanwhile, by the way, 710 migrants crossing the Channel on Monday. Oh, and also we've got this, green-led London Council. This is Lambeth Council. I think we're in we're in Southwark. We're our building right now, but in Lambeth Council they've been branded extreme and dangerous after they vowed to pull their cooperation with any immigration enforcement. They're basically saying if we do have any sort of ICE-style immigration enforcement to actually remove illegal immigrants, no right to be in the country, small point worth making. They will not actually share any intelligence and information with immigration officers. It's very simple. Then you withdraw funding. If you don't cooperate with the democratically elected government, democratically elected councils entitled, they can do what they want, but you don't get any central government funding anymore. And by the way, you send all of the illegal immigrants to Lambeth and then see what the voters think of that. It's a really simple way of solving that problem.
A large part, again, this is another breakdown of democracy when you have a large number of people who come into a country over time, both legally and illegally, but ultimately, in the end, they and their children and their children's children get the right to vote. Those people are then going to start voting for policies that help people like them, not what the majority want. And I'm afraid to say that this is something that should have been foreseen. It is not, in fact, democratic to invite people from other countries and then say, you have the right to change our laws. That's what's happened here.
I was just blown away at the local elections to discover that a lot of people who were not actually British nationals.
It's insane.
Genuinely did not know that. Been covering politics all these years, and I think a lot of politicians didn't know that as well.
Yes.
People who are, but you know, so if you're Pakistani or Indian, you can vote in our elections, but British people who live in Pakistan and India can't vote in their elections. Does anyone spot the flaw? Anyone? Let's talk about the spot the flaw in Keir Starmer. I mean, how long have we got? We're only on air till 1. I mean, I'm on there tomorrow as well. No, I still think three. No, we have almost 6 hours. Still think that we could do it. Wes Streeting yesterday, who word is at Westminster, look, if he had the 81 votes, 81 MPs backing him, he'd have started that leadership challenge already. He's told Keir Starmer to resign this week, regardless of what happens in the Makerfield by-election, and whether or not there is a challenge from Andy Burnham or not. Basically saying he needs to go. He called on the Prime Minister an immediate timetable for departure. We've had a lot of talk about, you know, Andy Burnham being possibly offered a cabinet job by Keir Starmer, as if he would take a cabinet job. A lot of talk that Andy Burnham will actually move very early, very quickly if he does win. Again, it's still an if. People are talking about as early as Friday. You know, 100 MPs issuing a statement calling for the Prime Minister to go, trying to drive him out within days, unless there was sort of a bloodless coronation. A lot of people worried that actually, you know, you really do need to have people actually tried and tested in a contest. A lot of others pointing out this is not good news. The Prime Minister has done an interview this morning, and this is absolutely fascinating because he has said, and you've got to love him for this, he's told a British journalist that Andy Burnham should not launch a leadership contest to oust him because the priority should be to win the by-election to be Mayor of Greater Manchester, which would be triggered if Andy Burnham becomes an MP. But he's also said, if there is a challenge, I tend to fight. I'm not going to walk away from that. And I've been clear and consistent about that. Remember, he always says this, I have been clear and consistent. He says, I don't think there should be a challenge. I think historically, particularly the last government, shows that this isn't a successful way for a government to behave. And he has said, basically, a leadership challenge would be bad for the country. Let's have a little watch and a listen of a little clip of what he's had to say in terms of Andy Burnham being invited into the cabinet.
Would you bring Burnham back into your cabinet?
Oh, Andy's a great asset, and yes, I want him to have a big role in government.
Are you going to call him at the weekend and invite him back into your cabinet?
Well, I'm sure I'll talk to Andy after the weekend. Of course I will. I've spoken to him many times in recent weeks, and when I came into politics in 2015, it was Andy Burnham's team that I joined, and we worked very well together. He's a huge asset. He's been a fantastic mayor in Manchester, and if he comes back into Parliament, and I hope he wins in the by-election, he'll be a fantastic asset for our party and for the country.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, Benedict. I don't think Keir Starmer meant any of that.
No, he didn't mean any of it. And Keir Starmer, I do think that Keir Starmer absolutely intends to hang on for as long as he can. Burnham can't afford to wait. Actually, the momentum is what matters to Burnham, because as much as people within the Labour Party like to believe that he is the Messiah who will fix everything, actually, even if he was that good, even if he was Blair 2.0, the scale of the problems that he faces and the shortening window in which he has to do it and to win people back to the party, it's very, very thin. And so I think actually dynamism is pretty much Burnham's only hope before actually that starts to dissipate. So, no, he has to make the move, I agree, actually, on day one, because Starmer will try and drag it out for as long as he can. He'll try and damage him for as much as he can. What people need is agency. That's the one thing, above all else, they don't get from Keir Starmer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what they really want from
But it's fascinating. Him saying, literally, we've got another clip, but I just can't quite get that up yet. But he said he will not resign in any circumstances. He said, I'm not walking away. I'm going to fight. It's a privilege to be the Prime Minister of this country. That is my motivation. That's what gets me up in the morning. I mean, he's not going. He's going to be drag-kicking, streaming. I mean, he's already got, like, you know, blood-splattered fingernails, what's left of them, clinging on, hasn't he? What I find extraordinary, we've had all this talk about, you know, getting these defence spending up and needing cuts elsewhere. And, you know, he was calling around the Cabinet, basically, after Rachel Reeves, his own Chancellor, who he appoints, basically said, well, I'm not providing the money. And he's calling around, doing a ring round. Hello, can anyone let me have some of their money? Sorry, the Prime Minister decides what the budget is. He's the First Lord of the Treasury. The Prime Minister decides what departments have to cut and what they don't. That's your basic... To govern is to choose. That's the kind of choice you have to make. Apparently, you know, he asked Ed Miliband for more money, and Ed Miliband said no. Ed Miliband has been refusing to take his calls. There's reports that he's, quote, ghosted Keir Starmer, refuses to take his calls. Sorry, if you're in the Cabinet and you won't take the call from the Prime Minister... You're no longer in the Cabinet.
Yeah.
You should be out on your ear. His authority is completely gone. I mean, it's just gone.
And again, if we were living in reality, the Prime Minister would know that you can actually sack Ed Miliband and it's not going to massively hamper you in the eyes of the public. This is the key thing. Within the party itself, sure, but so much earlier on in this whole process...
Why is he so popular?
It is bizarre. It is bizarre. But in terms of the public, they don't consider Ed Miliband a winner. I know that lots of people in the Labour Party seem to think,
we
but
know
he's
that.
not,
2015. Yes.
And here is the major thing. The one thing that means ultimately that he can't find the money for so many other things is a lack of growth. One of the major obstacles to growth in this country is energy policy. Who is the guy with his finger on the button saying energy policy is going to cost you more money than make you? It's Ed Miliband. That's the whole thing about this. And the fact that Miliband has this kind of hold on the Prime Minister. Honestly, if he was going to be brave, he should have bitten the bullet.
Brave, he was just going to do his job.
Well, no, it would have meant facing down his own party, which we all understand is a difficult thing, again, in a democracy to do, because you are, you know, with lunatics on your backbench, fine, but that was the person to face down, and he hasn't done it.
No, exactly. We've also got to talk, by the way, just briefly, about the latest figures out yesterday on personal independence payments, PIP claimants. These are, you know, basically disability claimants, basically an excuse not to work, as opposed to the actual people who were properly disabled, who we should definitely be helping out. But more than 500,000 people are now receiving those benefits for anxiety orders, specifically for anxiety orders. They include people who've got acne and wet the bed. I mean, this is insane. I mean, this is properly...
I have to live with both of those things, and I don't get free money.
I mean, the acne was when you were 15, and the bedwetting was when you were 2. But nevertheless, but I mean, this is the bill for 16 to 24-year-olds. Is on course to soar to £9 billion a year by 2040, beyond the rate it's going. I mean, 40 billion in just 4 years' time for these claimants. These people can work. These people can work. I mean, there are addiction claims, you know, alcohol misuse, drug misuse. I'm not paying. I mean, I know there are, just sleep and fatigue-related claims. Chronic fatigue claims, irritable bowel syndrome, food intolerances, allergies, with no risk of... I've got allergies. I'm tediously allergic to cumin and turmeric. I haven't had an Indian takeaway in about 20 years. I miss it every day.
The whole reason why we have mass migration and you can't partake in it.
I know, exactly. And I mean, it's genuinely, this is insane. Every single one of these people should be at work, nothing to discuss, or frankly, starving in the street. I'm really not that bothered which at this point, but I'm buggered if I'm going to work, paying taxes, for this lot to sit around at home going, oh, I've got an allergy to pollen. Sod off!
Yeah, and the whole time we're told...
skin.
The whole time we're told we can't find people to work jobs, which is why we have to have mass migration.
It's just mind-blowing. The solution to everything, I think you'll find, Ed DV's got today. Lib Dem leader is making a speech urging Labour to drop the torpor and timidity on the EU and simply rejoin the single market. It's the solution to everything. Did you not know? Did you not know?
Honestly, it is so frustrating. It's like I'm losing the power of speech. You'd get more sense out of Ed Davey if you try to put your head through a closed window whilst listening to him. Honestly, this is the response to all of these people. And this is precisely why we left. Because their answer to everything is outsource it to some undemocratic, unaccountable person overseas, and they'll solve it.
The technocrats in Brussels know better than the god-awful, racist, bigoted, ignorant British voters, because we cannot be trusted, because when we were trusted with the referendum, we voted the wrong way.
Yeah.
Shame on you all. Don't do that again. Next Tuesday, by the way, is the anniversary of one of the top 5 days of my life. Oh, no, the 24th was, because waking up to the news, well, waking up about 4:30, whatever it was.
So it's a 48-hour party, is what you're looking forward to.
I can't even talk about it without smiling, because it's still such a great, great, wonderful day when we stuck it to the technocrats and went, no. I mean, it doesn't matter. OK, they haven't enacted properly. But here's the thing. Every time those channel boats cross, every time we have a migration story, every time we have a crime story, every time we have all of these stories, we know the responsibilities are government, and they can't go, well, Brussels won't let... That's democracy, that is national sovereignty, and we can keep punishing those politicians that don't deliver what they say they're going to deliver, and we'll keep throwing them out until someone delivers. That is how we do democracy in this country. There. Anyway, finally, let's talk about football. We don't do democracy in football. Weirdly, when it comes to football, they go for this thing called meritocracy.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
This still doesn't work for us, though, does it?
All right, I was trying to be positive. But, you know, this weird idea that we actually have people who are good at what they're good at, what they do, representing the country. I know, isn't that a clever idea? We should try it in more areas of life. We got Harry Kane leading out our boys in Dallas, playing Croatia, first of our matches. Not probably the toughest match in our group, right to start with. They knocked us out of the 2018 World Cup semi-final, didn't they? So we've got a little bit of history. Yes. Harry Kane is on top form. World class. I mean, he is properly world class. The man can't put on a bloody football boot without kicking it into a goal. Yeah. So I mean, just hope, fear, trepidation, anxiety.
There's just something about the average Englishman. They do great work when they're over in Germany, and he's been there for some time, ultimately. It really turns you into a real winner. But he's been there for some time. He is world-class. Croatia are not the team that they used to be. They are still a very good team, but that was a golden generation for them. Do I think that we're going to... Listen, you can't say, as an Englishman, that this is our year, because that means it won't be. So I have to be pessimistic on everybody else's behalf.
I'm being quite pessimistic. I don't feel that the World Cup has really been set alive yet. I don't feel the buzz. No. Because that thing is happening. There are too many games, random times of the day and night. Yeah. And there are way too many teams. It's going on too long, and you haven't got the focus you get when it's sort of, you know, taking place in one country or in a small geographical zone. But I have a feeling that tonight... We'll get into it. And we're doing better than Scotland having a 2 a.m. kickoff. We used to have got a 9 p.m. kickoff.
At least Scotland won this time. I'll give them that. Finally, they won.
Unlike the Scots, apparently the majority of Scots don't want England to win their games. I'm supporting all the home teams, absolutely. But mostly England. Anyway, we've got to go to a quick break. I want to hear from you, 0344 499 1000. What should Britain's response be to that Russian warship firing warning shots at a British yacht in the English Channel? Also, love to hear your thoughts on Keir Starmer saying he's not going to go. He's going to be dragged out kicking and screaming, folks. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. TalkSport have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Coming up in just a few moments, going to talk to Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, the former Royal Navy commander, about events in the Channel yesterday. What should our British response be? First up, let's get to some of your calls on 0344 499 1000. Peter is in Liverpool about that Russian warship firing on a couple and their yacht in the Channel. Good morning to you, Peter. What do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. It's just that what can we expect our response to be, really, other than diplomatic? We don't have an armed forces anymore. And even if we had a decent government that would actually make a budget, that could have a budget, it would take years to. And plus that, where are they going to get these warships from? Are they going to buy them off the shelf from China or somewhere? Yeah. Because we haven't got the steel. They can't even have the authority to open a coal pit in Cumbria that was environmentally friendly to make the steel that we need.
Can you just hold on a second while I have a little weep, please, into my cup of tea?
Yeah.
It's because that's the thing. It's all tied in. Defence. It's not an isolated problem. Our defence spending and procurement. It's part of the whole ethos of government, frankly, and it's all under the Tories as well. This whole mad eco nonsense.
I mean, you were talking about the environment and stuff like that before, but everything is linked. Yeah. We can't raise taxes. We can't create jobs. We can't. I mean, the shipyards that we used to have, all those skills have gone. We used to be able to build. We've got 4 nuclear submarines. Apparently, they're all in dock.
Yeah, I know.
You know, we've got no defences. Russia must be laughing their heads off at us. We are simply the fools of the world, really.
I mean, I'm surprised anyone's taking us seriously, frankly. Thanks for that cheery call, Peter. I'm going to get Chris Parry's thoughts on what you had to say in just a moment. Thank you for that. I mean, it's weird. Our callers know damn sight more than an awful lot of government ministers about this stuff, don't they? Tony's in Buckinghamshire. Tony, what do you want to say?
Yeah, morning, Julia.
Morning.
First-time caller.
Very brave. We like that.
I had early part of my life, my career in the Royal Navy, and over the last 40-odd years, played around in boats and skippered commercially and all sorts of things. I tend to come down on the side of the MOD and the Russian ship. Oh. Now, as I understand it, the Russian ship was not making way. So she could either be classed as a vessel not under command or control. Mm-hmm. If you're on a sailing boat, which under the IMO regulations at sea give you right of way, predominantly.
Mainly because you haven't got as much control over your movements.
That's right, unless you are near a vessel that is not under command or making way, and within separation, commercial vessel separation zones. Now, I think that the sailing boat skipper was probably at fault here, in the fact that he knew that warship was there. He would have known that his distance was closing to that warship. It's generally bloody good advice to keep at least a mile distance.
Yeah, they said they're 500 metres. I'm not very good at my conversions, but they said they weren't on a collision course.
Well, there's 2,000 yards in a nautical mile.
Okay.
So 500
they were much
yards
closer than that.
He was within quarter of a mile of a warship.
Well, hold on a minute. They couldn't have kept him out. They wouldn't have been. They said it was misty. Wouldn't have been able to see it, and it didn't have whatever this term is, but there's some sort of transponder. It didn't have a beacon on, basically showing that it existed. It was trying not to be seen.
Yeah, I don't think it was misty. Looking at the weather forecast, it wasn't overly restricted in visibility. So within 500 yards, he would have certainly been aware that ship was there.
They're big. That's a big frigate. Yeah. Okay.
It is. Now, when you're sailing and you're getting into closer proximity, you take a bearing on other vessels. So he would have known that his bearing wasn't changing. Therefore, he was heading towards a pub.
But he says he's experienced sailing. He says he wasn't. But you think that actually we shouldn't play this up, and the MOD is right to play this down, and actually it was right. But, you know, but there's lots more detail. We'll go into it with Chris Parry. But you reckon actually this wasn't what a lot of us are interpreting it as.
The officer of the watch and the skipper of the Russian ship would have seen this small boat closing. Now, the thing about playing around in boats is a lot of it is interpretation and guesswork as to what the skipper of the other boat's going to do.
Right, OK.
Which is why you take reasonable precautions. Firstly, the skipper of the yacht should have had is VHF on channel 16 and turned up to Audible.
Well, and by all accounts, they said there wasn't any such warning. But by the way, of course, the British Coast Guard would have a record of any message on channel 16. They record all of that. So if there was a message, we would know there had been one. Tony, I'm going to have to leave it there because I've got Chris Parry waiting on the line. Thank you so much. Very useful call. Good to have your expertise. Thank you. Please do call in again. We're going to take a quick break, then we're going to be here from former Royal Navy Commander Chris Parry. Who does he agree with? Is it Peter or Tony? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:38 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, delighted to welcome a man who will hopefully be able to give us a definitive view on that Russian frigate warship firing shots close by, as warning shots to a British couple, pensioner couple on a yacht in open waters in the Channel yesterday morning. Chris Parry, CBE, is a Rear Admiral. He's also a former Royal Navy Commander. Good morning to you, Chris. Tell us, what do you think happened? And what should our response be? And who was in the right and who was in the wrong from what we know so far?
Julia, I spent the last 20 hours or so listening to loads of people who muck around in boats. And I'm afraid almost all of it is tosh. Oh. And I've just heard some tosh from one of your callers as well, I'm afraid. Here are the facts. OK, you're advised not to come within 500 yards, not meters, yards of a warship. You're absolutely prohibited from coming within 100 yards. Now, the rules concerning collisions and avoidance at sea say that sail always has priority with regard to a powered vessel. Yeah. Now, as I understand it, the Russian frigate was stationary. It wasn't conducting any special operations, and it wasn't constrained by any sort of channel. Therefore, the frigate had to give way to the yacht within the proviso that the yacht really shouldn't approach within 100 yards. That's the point. Okay?
But the yachting couple say, this is Alan and Jane Kelvey in numerous interviews, and they've just said, we weren't on a collision course with it. We weren't that close to it. We weren't sailing at it. We weren't going to collide with it. So
I believe that. But there's another issue as well.
Why would you do that, by the way? They're not idiots, clearly.
Well, if you see a warship, it's actually a tourist attraction, isn't it? It's what we call goofing. When I was commanding warships, the number of ferries and others that diverted to come and have a look at us, we always used to wave, not fire warning shots.
Yes.
At the end of the day, when you've got 20,000 shaft horsepower, you can motor away. Yeah. This is ridiculous. But I think one thing I'd like to say, Julia, is that every single Russian captain right now is absolutely paranoid about suicide vessels. So if you look what's been happening in the Black Sea, they desperately don't want anything that looks like, possibly a suicide boat or an unmanned vessel coming near it.
Because that's what's happening in the Crimean War.
Yeah. So,
right.
I mean, there's a famous story in 1905, Julia, when the Russian Baltic fleet was sent to go and deal with the Japanese in the Russo-Japanese War. They came across some British trawlers in the North Sea, and they opened fire and sank two of them. And the British Home Fleet was mobilised to go and deal with them. But the Russian admiral said, I can't believe how useless my fleet is. And in fact, they went round and got completely annihilated by the Japanese. So the English Channel is another.
But listen, we've not had any scenes like this in over 120 years by all accounts. But here's the thing: there's been a lot of debate about the Russian vessel captain. Apparently, is saying, look, we'd lost control temporarily. And that's why we were concerned, and that's why they fired the warning shots. Now, the couple say there were no flares, there was no call on this open channel. People don't say, oh, no, there's this
Channel
open
16.
channel 16.
Yeah.
It's left open, and basically a mayday call, anything that goes on, every sailor, every mojo, you have that channel open, and so you can hear anything in emergency, because also there's this onus, if a ship is in trouble, another vessel is in trouble, you have a duty to go to them. There are quite a lot of little rules there. There was no call on Channel 16, and the Coast Guard would have a record of that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but it's even simpler than that, Julia. If you've got a problem on your ship, you hoist signals on your main mast. You either have flags saying you're not under command, or you actually have they call it two balls, that you actually raise saying, again, you're not under command. There were no symbols raised. As you say, there was no radio call. The Russians basically were stationary. They didn't have to do anything at all. I suspect they just didn't want the yacht coming near them. It's as simple as that.
Okay, but the thing is, in terms of shots fired, they weren't firing at the yacht. They weren't going to sink them. That wasn't the aim. But the fact that they were there and they didn't have, and I don't know what the full tech terminology is, I'm not going to pretend, this sort of transponder, this sort of beacon that we can see. Like we can see when we'll be discussing the Strait of Hormuz, where all the ships are. There's literally a beacon. You can look at a yacht. I can look outside onto the River Thames and go, oh, that looks like a big fancy yacht. I wonder what that is. I can pinpoint it, and because it will show up, and I can see what it is. They didn't have that on. They did not want to be seen. By all accounts, the last 2 weeks, this warship has been escorting the shadow fleet of oil tankers coming with Russian oil through the channel, the ones we've not been stopping until Sunday. But the timing of this happening, though, on Sunday, we finally had the seizing of a Russian tanker on the shadow fleet. We then, on Sunday, and on Monday, we then had the convictions of two men believed to be linked to a Russian diplomat who'd paid them to basically commit arson attacks on the Prime Minister's former home and his car and his flat. Now, the timing of this just seems a little bit of a coincidence for everyone to be playing it down.
Well, Julia, I think there is a connection. The Russian warship is saying, look, if you're going to play funny business with this or any of our shadow tankers, the likelihood is we're going to open fire. I mean, back in the Cold War, we were doing surveillance up in the Barents Sea, and we were taking pictures basically of one of their latest secret radars very close to, and they shot at us. I mean, we were pushing the limits. There's no question about it to get the pictures. But one of the panels blew over, and we could see the insides of the radar. So we thought this is too good an opportunity to miss.
You took your chances. OK, but here's the thing. OK, so what should our reaction? The MOD's playing it all down, because then you don't have to have a reaction, because you can play it down. Yeah, and as you say, right, they may well have been fearing suicide vessels. This may have been a frigate that's manned by someone who used to be in the Black Sea, and knowing that's a risk. However, that is not generally considered to be a risk in the English Channel. I know they were in international waters, but we cannot have Russian warships in the English Channel, not that far, in international waters, but not that far from our coast, firing shots at a British vessel. And yeah, we all just shrug and say, never mind. Because again and again and again, the Russians, their subs are being monitored while they're looking at all of our cabling, our electronic cabling, our financial cabling, our electricity cabling, our gas pipeline. We've got numerous challenges from them with cyber attacks. We've got interference with elections. We've got this arson attack. We know what they're up to. We know that they consider us a hostile state. They are clearly a hostile state to us. We've got, clear threats that being, openly talked about in terms of the Baltic states that many expect. At some point, we have to show that we're serious and that we will not put up with this. We are sending a very clear signal to the Russians that when they are testing what is our line that they can't cross, they've yet to find that line.
Julia, if we had one of our warships 20 miles off the coast of Russia, up in the Baltic or, in the Barents Sea, and we used live ammunition in relation to a yacht, a Russian yacht, I can guarantee that within half an hour, you'd have had 6 very angry jet aircraft flying over you and harassing you. So, you know, the Russians have got to be, it's got to be made clear to the Russians that you don't come down using live ammunition in the channel.
And how do we make that clear? Because there's a fear our politicians, they're not military people, they are scared of escalation, they are scared of war, we're not prepared for war. I mean, I don't know how many people, the Chief Defence Staff, former Defence Secretary, the author of the Strategic Defence Review, I don't know how many more people can tell us all we ain't prepared for war. So what can we risk doing when we are not prepared for war?
Well, first of all, Julia, you don't downplay the incident. You actually make a diplomatic complaint and say you don't do this in the English Channel. It's as simple as that.
And the Russians will say, or what? You and whose army's going to stop us?
Well, no, you simply say, well, next time, we're obviously going to have to put a warship on you. And, whatever you do in the English Channel, you're going to be followed around by a serious warship. The big problem, Julia, is that I'm afraid to say the way we've run down our frigate and destroyer force is, I can tell you, during the Cold War, we would have put a similar sized and powerful vessel alongside that frigate permanently in the Channel while it was here. We're sending tankers and little patrol boats out. And of course, the Grigorevich is saying, hang on, just a minute, look at what I'm armed with. Something that could take on your carrier, frankly. So don't try and sort of muscle me with a small patrol boat and a tanker. I can do better than that. So we need to be able to go toe to toe with these ships whenever they do things like this. I'm afraid it's largely performative, just like the assault on the tanker at the weekend.
Yeah.
When you've got cameramen preceding the assault force.
Yes, very strange. Yes, a lot of us wondered about that. Chris Parry, it's always so good to get your expertise. Thank you so much. Former Royal Navy Commander Chris Parry. Benedict Spence is with me the whole show and listening to that. I'd rather, Paul Tony getting told off there by Chris Parry, our caller.
We'll get him back. Let's see what the two
Tony, what's your
get them on
response
at
to
the same time. But I mean, Chris is right there, right? And so much of this is performative, and it's incredibly demoralising because being performative like that robs you of options. What would you like Britain to be in the future? You don't get a say if you can't assert what that future is.
Absolutely.
That's what this boils down to.
Absolutely. 10:49 is the time. Up next, going to be talking about 710 migrants on dinghies crossing the Channel, the largest so far this year, coming over on Monday. How many more will it be if we have a nice, fine summer? I mean, is that a good trade-off enough for some sun in this summer? I don't know. We're going to be talking to Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. Up next, this is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
10:51 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Well, the fabulous news about what's been going on in the Channel. We can't take on Russian frigates firing on our pensioners on their yachts. If only they would think about maybe taking on the Channel migrants in the dinghies, then I wouldn't have such a problem with the firing of warning shots. Maybe we should think about doing that ourselves. 710 mostly young men, they always are, mostly young men, arrived on our shores on Monday on those Channel boats over from France. And people have been saying that, the number of people who've arrived in Britain so far, the boats has gone down. Yes, it has. But that's really only because of the weather. It's always only because of the weather. Let's talk about this with Robert Bates. He's Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, as always, for joining us. Thank you. I can genuinely thank you for all the amazing work you do on this issue, putting all the numbers together and everything. But, highest daily total yet for this year. It won't be the highest for the year. We're just entering, the big season, aren't we? We often go, I think until last weekend, we went, about 10 days or something without virtually anyone arriving. And everyone goes, yay, the government's policy is working, the gangs are smashed. No, it was just bad weather. Basically, I'm sorry, but the BBC weather forecasters have more say over how many people arrive here than Keir Starmer does, don't they?
Well, that's quite right. And I think actually what the staggering figure of Monday does show is that, yes, we have had a few quiet days for the very reasons you identify, but the demand hasn't abated. The supply and the ability to facilitate that demand hasn't abated in any way, shape or form. We've still got people smugglers that are absolutely running rings around French enforcement and any strategy that the Home Office has been able to conjure up. And actually any strategy the Home Office is putting in place is probably already outdated because the people smugglers have moved on to new devices. We've seen it with them moving up the Channel ever so slightly into Belgium a bit more. We've seen them, repeatedly outfoxing any attempts, lackadaisical as they are, from the French authorities to actually stop their departures. And I think, unfortunately, the Labour government are very good at spinning this when it comes to the numbers are coming down. Well, yes, the numbers are coming down, but the numbers were a couple of years ago were so high that are we really saying that just because we've come down from that peak, we're in any way out of crisis?
Yes, and again, it's this idea that, what is an acceptable number of tens of thousands of young fighting-age men coming to our shores from war-torn, basket-case third world countries with completely alien cultures? To the nearest 10,000, what would be an acceptable number? That's the extraordinary question they're expecting us to answer.
Well, it is, and I think actually we've all become a bit numb just to how extraordinary what we are seeing in the Channel. It's when these small boats first started in 2018, we had the Home Secretary coming back from holiday. It was crisis all over the front pages of the newspaper. There were sort of emergency meetings being organised because it was recognised for what it is, a security threat. We're now actually in a much worse situation because, of course, we've had over 200,000 cross the Channel. Hardly any have been removed. About 5% have actually been removed from the country.
And most of those went voluntarily.
Well, exactly. In many cases, without the Home Office even realising, of course. So we've got, a huge number of individuals that are already in the country. That in itself is a crisis. Even if the flow across the Channel does come down somewhat, we still have this inability to remove those who, as you say, come from culturally distant nations. We know we've seen repeatedly some of these crimes that are being committed, the escalating asylum crisis. And I actually don't think that even if another boat never crossed the Channel, we would still have a crisis on our hands just because of the sheer number that are being put up.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. We always talk about the boat numbers. They're still coming through in lorries as well. They largely moved from huge numbers in lorries to huge numbers on the boats. But they are still coming through in the lorries in other methods. There are still people, again, huge number of people who are getting into the country by hook or by crook, either on some dodgy visa or just arriving, as a tourist, and then claiming asylum when they get here. I imagine there are also plenty of boats that are getting across the Channel where they've not been intercepted. No one has any idea whether these people are here or not.
Well, that's exactly right. And the Telegraph actually reported a couple of weeks ago that there have been, landings in places up in East Anglia and so forth, places you wouldn't expect to be seeing them. There are
no controls. We've been talking a lot about this couple, getting fired on in the Channel. But, if anyone has ever been, gone on, friends' boats, tootling around the Isle of Wight. And there are no controls at these ports. You just tootle in, tootle out. No one checks anything. You could, it amazes me that a lot of these Channel migrant, people traffickers aren't using yachts rather than dinghies, for the people who are willing to pay a bit more and, steal a yacht, send it over, lovely jubbly, gets there safely, everyone gets paid. no one's got to worry, no one even knows those people are in the country. I'd be amazed if that's not happening on a scale.
Well, exactly. I could well imagine that being a revelation in the next couple of months, Julia, to be perfectly honest. And the reason that we're not able to actually address, the reason why we have this problem is because we don't in this country have anywhere near the level of immigration enforcement and clampdowns on illegal working that we should be having. The immigration enforcement in this country has a budget that's actually less than a lot of local authorities. They're not backed. They don't have the resources. They don't have the access to the data.
And it would be so simple to do. I mean, you can't employ someone. You know, I remember how, employing like a cleaner or, when my daughter was young, employing a nanny, I need to see your passport to know that you're legally here, you're able to work here. I mean, my daughter did a job in a bar and she had to go and produce her passport in person to get a job in a bar. I mean, good employers, legal employers are doing this. Any employer who is found to be employing someone without absolute proof that they're legally in the country and legally allowed to work should, face 5 years in prison and a 200 grand fine. You could solve that very quickly.
Well, exactly. It needs to be a far tougher than it is. The fines, although they are being increased by this government, are still
prison time. It's got to be prison time. That always focus minds.
And there's so few actual raids going on, and we know which industries are the ones that have a greater propensity for illegal working. It's clear as day. So I think it involves a lot more holistic approach than is currently the case. Unfortunately, it involves sort of talking about the hostile environment that was raised by Theresa May when she was Home Secretary, and that now has a very, very sort of negative connotation.
Well, yes, well, for the wokerati, I mean, there should be a hostile environment to people who are not legally in the country. But have you seen the story about Lambeth Council in South London, which is now led by the Greens? I mean, good luck to people living there. Well done. I hope that works out for you. But they've been branded extreme and dangerous, quite rightly, I think. They pulled their cooperation with immigration enforcement, with the Home Office. They expressed fears about Home Office raids causing fear and dividing communities. Well, I mean, sorry, if you've got a problem with people being raided because they'll say it's because they're black or brown. No, it's not. It's because they're here illegally. If people are here legally, it won't be a problem. But I mean, they just say we just won't cooperate. Well, then the Home Office shouldn't cooperate with them and they should withdraw all state funding, shouldn't they?
Well, I do think actually, you need to just upturn the apple cart when it comes to actually addressing and tackling these obstinate councils. Any government that comes in 2029 and wants to be serious about this just has to take a steamroller to these kind of objections. You can't play nicey nice and within the parameters. It is going to have to be a rough and ready business. And I think that this is why when it comes to actually talking about where you're going to detain individuals, you do need to sort of take it out of the hands of these councils and
Absolutely. Robert Bates, always so good to talk to you. You're doing fantastic work. So he's at the Centre for Migration Control. You can hear the music coming up to the top of the hour. Coming up, we're going to be hearing a little bit more about what the Prime Minister has said. He's clinging on with dear life, guys. He ain't going to go. He's vowing to fight on, even if there is a challenge. I want to know also your reaction to that Russian warship firing warning shots at a British yacht in the English Channel. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker watching on YouTube or on your connected device, thank you so much for your company. If you've missed anything from the show, and you should be regretting you have, go to my YouTube page, hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. It's called, you'll never guess this is genius, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. There you are. I don't know how they came up with that. Anyway, coming up in this hour, we're discussing more about that Russian warship firing warning shots at an unarmed yacht crewed by 2 British pensioners in the English Channel. Fresh escalation of tensions with Moscow. Were they in the wrong? Was the frigate in the wrong? Is this actually all about what's been going on in the last few days? Thus seizing that vessel from the Shadow Fleet, and indeed that conviction of 2 men linked to a Russian diplomat firebombing the Prime Minister's former home. Also going to be talking about why on earth 500,000 people claiming to have anxiety or other mental health problems are claiming PIP, personal independence payments, thousands of pounds a year, including, by the way, people who've got acne and who bedwet. I'm not actually joking about, and people who've got allergies. Not ones that could risk them dying, like anaphylaxis. No, just allergies. So I won't be here tomorrow. I'm off to claim benefits. It's an overall surge to a record 4 million people. When are they going to get to grips with this? I mean, we've got no money for defence, but yet, by all means, you've got bad skin and you've wet the bed, you get to stay home all day while we all pay for you. I mean, we're a clown country. We really are. Also going to be talking about the challenges to the Labour leadership. Keir Starmer says he ain't going anywhere. We'll listen to a couple of clips of what he's had to say, Mr. Fighting On, at the G7 summit about Andy Burnham's future and others. And we're also going to be talking about Baroness Casey, who led that national investigation into grooming gangs, remember, very much won over the trust of those many grooming survivors. And she says they had been failed by Whitehall box ticking. Yeah, tell us something we don't know, Louise Casey. I'm delighted to say that joining me throughout the show today is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. Morning to you. Asking you specifically about this Russian warship firing warning shots at a British yacht in the English Channel. What should Britain's response be? It's simple as that. We've already had a keen yachter, former Royal Navy man, Tony, giving us a call. We've had Peter saying to us, like, what the hell can we do? We haven't got a military. Everyone keeps telling us that. We also had former Rear Admiral, former Royal Navy commander. He knows what he's talking about. Chris Parry, big friend of the show, saying that basically, tosh, I think is what he said. Lovely word. But basically, every Russian captain is paranoid after what's been going on the Black Sea of suicide vessels. But why would you fear that in the English Channel? But basically, there is some sort of connection, no doubt at all, to what has been going on recently. But I want to know your thoughts. Give us a call. What should our reaction be? What can our reaction be given the state of our forces? Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Benedict Spence, I say, Conservative commentator, is joining me for the whole show. Interesting to get those different perspectives from people who know about things. I've done a little bit of pottering around in boats. I find there's a lot of shouting on yachts. I'm not sure it's as much fun as people think it is. Doesn't really do it for me.
It's just a waterborne version of caravanning. As far as I'm concerned.
Well, if someone would like to offer me a trip on a super yacht, and I can just drink chilled rosé all day, happy to play. I'm at your beck and call. Otherwise, can we just have a motor, please? I'm not quite sure we can't use motors. It seems to be a way of getting around much more quickly. But there we are. First world problems. This Russian warship. It seems to be the timing of this, these shots fired in this very bizarre circumstances of a boat that clearly didn't. A 409-foot frigate from Russia's Black Sea Fleet firing at a 40-foot little yacht that was, 500 metres away, we're told. A couple who were pensioners say they weren't on a collision course. They knew what they were doing. There was no open channel 16, no message saying, can you get out of the way? No warning. They didn't have their sort of beacon on, so they were clearly not wanted to be seen. We know that apparently that this warship has been basically guarding this fleet of oil tankers coming from the Shadow Fleet from the Russians, carrying oil out to those who were willing to buy the Russian oil. And we've been allowing it to happen. They're in international waters, but we're not doing anything about it. We seized one on Sunday. Sunday. We had these two guys, a Ukrainian and Romanian, convicted of firebombing and conspiring to firebomb the Prime Minister's home, his flat and his car on Monday. The timing of this happening on Tuesday morning, I'm sorry, how is that a coincidence?
I just think it sort of feeds into an overall attitude, which is that the Russians are very aware that we're more than happy to sort of play up their threats for both real and imagined, for propaganda purposes. You know, as you pointed out in a previous conversation about the seizing of that oil tanker, wasn't it curious that there was already a camera crew ready to go and to film our brave boys going from room to room?
I mean, they must have gone into it and then come out again and then filmed it again, which is a bit weird.
Which is, well, it's propaganda. That's what it is. We have to be honest here. That's exactly what it is. And it's so that the Prime Minister can turn around and go, we're taking Russia very seriously, even though we don't actually have money for, you know, a viable military.
My Keir Starmer voice is better than yours.
Is it? Do you want to do it now? Maybe this was Rachel Reeves. I don't know. They're kind of interchangeable, aren't they?
They are sounding more and more similar.
They're morphing into the same person. At the same time, Rachel Reeves' hairstyle is morphing into Bridget Phillips. They all become one giant...
She's had more hairstyles since she's been Chancellor than I've had my entire life.
When we say that they're interchangeable, they literally are interchangeable. They're just Lego Labour front benchers, and you just spot them round.
I just cannot bear to listen to either of them.
Are you sure that's not...
I don't know what that is.
That's John Major. Good Lord. I say, there's a lot going on here.
We're going to come on to this because he's not going. He won't go.
Who isn't? John Major? He's already gone. He won't go either.
God be honest, couldn't bear him either. No. But there we are. No, but this is the thing. I mean, it's just we haven't got the resources. We haven't got we haven't got any money. We've had warnings from the former Defence Secretary, former Armed Forces Minister, plenty of other former Defence Secretaries, former chiefs of defence. We've had the current chief of the General Staff only yesterday saying at a Lord's Defence Committee that basically we're going to have to scale down even our training and military action because of the lack of funding. And we're told that the new Defence Secretary Dan Jarvis, who by all accounts very, very solid soldier, very well respected on all sides, politically, that he may well he's basically had to accept pretty much the same amount of money that John Healey, the outgoing Defence Secretary, said simply wasn't enough. This is not a serious government when they're spending more and more on defence and this net zero ego stuff. And the Prime Minister apparently can't get his calls taken by Ed Miliband. He won't even take his calls and hasn't got the guts to sack him. I mean, a lot of the problems we're in is it's not just like there's long-standing issues, but there's also a lot of it is simply down to a weak and unfocused Prime Minister.
Yeah, we have to remember that as much as voters would like their various pet thing to be the most important thing, actually the whole point of a state is defence, first and foremost. If you don't do that, then you are, not fulfilling your duty. It's not the NHS.
Defence against attack from foreign power, and then it's defence, and then it's law and order within.
Then it's maintaining
nothing
your
else.
rights.
Nothing else matters before the health. Healthcare, schooling,
your pensions.
none of that comes close to those first two duties of care.
Yeah.
If you don't have law and order, if you don't have defence of the realms of our borders, I mean, they're failing on the, let's have another 200,000 young men from war-torn countries of fighting age entering our country. We'll put them up in Airbnbs. I mean, I'm sorry, we are in insane territory.
It is.
It's not joined-up thinking, it's not coherent thinking, and it's not safe thinking.
Yeah, and it's why when ultimately for years we had people with a straight face talking about the wickedness and uselessness of borders. The alarm bells were ringing for a lot of us even then, and this should be the standard across the general public. You shouldn't be sat there going, oh, but I'd quite like a little bit more to go on this or this, that and the other. Yeah. No, that's the first thing that you spend your money on. But I would also say very quickly, how much money you spend is irrelevant if you just set fire to it, because ours is the 5th most funded military in the world.
We've got a lot less bang for our buck.
It's appallingly
But an awful lot of the conversation people have, we need to fix this, need to fix that. Basically, the roof has caved in, right? The roof has caved in, and people are standing there saying, shall we refurbish the kitchen? No, you need to mend the roof first. You need to get the basics right first, and then you do the rest. The kitchen, I'm afraid, extra benefits for everybody, a bit of funding for this. These are, I'm afraid, your luxury extras. We are not in times when we can have our luxury extras. Sorry, guys, you're going to have to get back to work. Otherwise, you're going to find yourselves in a very few years on the front line in a war against Russia, or your sons are going to be. And all the people saying, well, I don't see why I should do anything. I wouldn't fight for my country. You're not going to get a choice. You know how those Ukrainian men didn't get a choice? And they actually had to go on the front line, because that's what happens during war. And it's what happened during the Second World War, it's what happened in the First War, and it is what is going to happen if we do see more incursions by Russia. If you were in charge, Benedict, God forbid, other than the fact that everyone would be required to wear a suit and a tie at all times.
It would be a good start.
That would be the first rule. Would cufflinks be required as well?
What do you take me for?
Sorry, of course cufflinks would be... I don't know what I was thinking. I'm just going to slap my own hand there. Those would be the rules when Benedict's in charge. What would you be doing if you were the Prime Minister or the Defence Secretary after that Russian warship fired those warning shots?
Suspending democracy? No. Obviously...
No, that's what they're doing. What would you do?
And I would do it to maintain... that's what I'd do in response. You're going to suspend democracy, I'll do the same. No, obviously, what you need is a credible deterrent. You need everybody in the world who might mess with you to understand the consequences of doing so. And this is what I would say. If you look at any country that is increasingly taken seriously on the international stage, they don't necessarily spend money on all the nice trappings of modernity, but they do spend it on defence. And that's the
Turkey.
case whether or not you... I was literally about to say Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kenya, Pakistan. These are countries that have very serious, credible threats on the doorstep. What do? They make sure that their armed forces are funded. Why does Pakistan have a nuclear program, but it doesn't have, a universal pension program? Because it's got India on one side, it's got Afghanistan there, it's got Iran next to it. That is what we're talking about here. Kenya, you might sit there and go, why doesn't it have universal healthcare? I don't know. It's got Al-Shabaab right on its doorstep. It's got Somalia right there. These are countries that look at their security interests and go, before all else, you need to make sure that is not going to topple us.
Except, of course, these countries don't, even when they are safe, they don't go on and do that stuff. But
well, they don't, that's true. Yeah. But still, that is the first duty. And if you don't do that, your country collapses.
Different urgent priorities. Yeah, yes. It's genuine. Again, my view is on the defence spending, we've been talking about it an awful lot on the show in the last few weeks, is really, really, really clear, which is that you don't say how much have we got for defence. You say, what are the threats? What are our capabilities need to be to defend ourselves against those threats? And you find the money, full stop. Well, we're not going to find the money under this Prime Minister because he hasn't even got the guts to fire Ed Miliband, who won't take his calls when he's asking him to cut some of the money on net zero. He's a Prime Minister in office, not in power. It's as simple as that. He's not fit for the job. He's done an interview this morning basically saying he is not going to walk away from the job. A lot of talk, Wes Streeting talking about challenge to the Prime Minister, calling for him to set out a timetable to depart. He's been doing that for a couple of weeks now. Big speech yesterday, Wes Streeting, we can fly the flag. I don't know who he's quite appealing to. I think he wants to drop net zero. He's trying to go for the right of the party. I don't think realistically Wes Streeting has a chance. He'll probably be he'll almost certainly be in the cabinet. You'd have him, I'll paraphrase, spitting out rather than spitting in, if you were anyone else. Lots of talk, if Andy Burnham does become an MP on Friday morning, that Andy Burnham will go very early. There'll be a challenge. There'll be a statement from, 100 MPs, Labour MPs will sign a statement calling for the Prime Minister to go. He wants to go. Here is what the Prime Minister, got a couple of clips to play of what he's had to say today. And, it's depressing stuff, people. First of all, we'll hear about whether or not he is or is not going to walk away.
No circumstances.
I'm not going to walk away. I'm going to fight.
No circumstances you would step aside.
I'm not walking away.
Okay.
I'm going to fight. The question is, do we pull together and turn that around as a party and as a government, which is what I think we should do, or do we descend into a leadership race which will bring chaos with it? We know that. The last government did this.
I mean, we do know that, and there are a lot of people saying the Labour government needs to learn the lessons. The Tories kept changing leaders, and how did that work out? Because the problem, I mean, with Boris Johnson, it was over Partygate and the lies there, but it wasn't just eating cake, people. There isn't. I mean, it was the policies. It was failure to deliver on the stuff that we had been told they would deliver on, and that's a clear failing of this government. There's no evidence whatsoever that Andy Burnham would do anything that would make he might do some things differently, but he wouldn't do them any better. But here's what the Prime Minister had to say when he was asked, it was Beth Rigby from Sky News, about Andy Burnham.
Would you bring Burnham back into your cabinet?
Oh, Andy's a great asset, and yes, I want him to have a big role in government.
Are you going to call him at the weekend and invite him back into your cabinet?
Well, I'm sure I'll talk to Andy after the weekend. Of course I will. I've spoken to him many times in recent weeks, and when I came into politics in 2015, it was Andy Burnham's team that I joined, and we worked very well together. He's a huge asset. He's been a fantastic mayor in Manchester, and if he comes back into Parliament, I hope he wins in the by-election, he'll be a fantastic asset for our party and for the country.
I don't think Keir Starmer meant any of that. I love that he's spoken to Andy Burnham many times in recent weeks, like, yeah, why don't you leave me alone? Let me keep my job. But it's fascinating when he's asked will he bring Burnham back in. He says he's a great asset. He goes, I want him to have a big role in the government. Yeah, Andy Burnham also wants to have a big role in the government, except not the role that you want him to have. Look, I mean, look, I'm going to have to read the Maker film candidates out at some point anyway, so we may as well just give in to that.
Let's just plough through it.
Soz everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know why they make me do this. Other broadcasters aren't made to do this. You look at our website, there's a list of the candidates. But you know, look, by all accounts, and I was speaking to some senior reform figures, you know, people like Nigel Farage and others at a Westminster event last night, and Richard Tice, and you know, it is still too close to call, and you've still got that situation where if a lot of people who apparently want to oust Labour but are voting Restore, when I'm sorry, on your best case scenario, Rupert Lowe, Restore is not going to be winning this by-election and is not going to be winning the next general election. That's a load of absolute abject nonsense. It's not going to happen. In which case, if you are someone who broadly agrees with Reform, but rather they went further, surely you'd be better off voting Reform than you would with Restore, and utterly wasting your vote.
Which is what
it would be.
In this circumstance, yes, you're letting in Labour, but I think that the reasoning, I don't think anybody is actually making this argument, which is that the way that you hasten the end of this government is by getting them into that Tory position of starting to break the taboo of chopping and changing leaders, realising it doesn't fix anything, making things worse because the bond markets go, ha-ha, this person wants to borrow even more. And that is what Farage has said would ultimately usher in
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think there's a big fear, like there's an element where Keir Starmer is so hated and so useless and so awful, and the authority's gone. Again, I'm really annoyed with myself. I said, no, he's going to be gone within weeks. It was quite a few weeks ago. I mean, technically, in the 52 weeks, still no. I'm annoyed that I gave in to that hope myself, because this man, they go, oh, he's so resilient. Oh, that's his one claim to fame, is he's resiliently bad at this job and won't go. But the idea that a lot of people are going, oh, it's terrible, no, we don't want Andy Burnham to get in, he'll get a big bounce. He will get a bounce. It won't be a big bounce.
No.
He's not going to do anything better. Oh, he can hand some more benefits out to those people. You know what? The vast majority of people in this country do actually work, and they don't want that. I'm sorry. Whatever bounce he gets is going to be in the same people, the same people who were going to vote Labour anyway when it came down to it the next election. And he is not going to be the great white hope that the left thinks he's going to be.
Well, that's the thing.
And I like the guy.
You've got two options, basically. One is he sticks it out for 3 years, in which case he loses in 3 years, because there is no way that he can change the structural issues in the amount of time.
And if he appoints Ed Miliband as his chancellor, lols.
That is why people are talking about perhaps the best option for him is calling a snap general election. Now, you're looking sceptical right there, but he's going to lose in 3 years anyway, so he might be sat there
Well, then why would you call a snap general election?
Because he might get enough of a bounce now to squeak in now.
I don't think that bounce is going to be big enough.
You don't think this is the bounce.
It would need to be like a 15-point bounce.
Yeah, sure, but this is why I'm sat here and I'm looking at a lot of the hysteria from Reform and Reform-adjacent candidates. I'm going, what's your issue? What are you scared of about Andy Burnham? He's going to lose in 3 years anyway. If it's not him, it'll be Keir Starmer for 3 years. You're happy with that. Or he bites the bullet for some reason and gives you your early general election. That's what I don't get about a lot of the histrionics from Reform.
The Tories certainly not ready for a general election, but neither is Reform.
Well, yeah,
and their selection of their candidate, Robert Kenyon, although I'm really not bothered either way what he says he wants to not to do to Carol Vorderman's bottom. Carol Vorderman needs to stop putting out, you know, Instagrams that are mostly of her bottom when she exercises. I mean, Carol Vorderman, frankly, is a laughing stock in terms of her. These women who literally just put out videos of their backsides or their breasts, and then go, oh, everyone's objectifying me. No, you objectified you. That was your choice. You then live with the consequences. I'm really sorry. But, you know, the fact that they didn't vet this guy well enough in the first place, I mean, you've got to worry. You've got to worry that how are they vetting people when it comes. But that said, an awful lot of the candidates we see, you know, Labour, the Green Party's candidates in the last local elections, good grief. I mean, the number of blatant, open anti-Semites, and they just don't care.
But again, this is why I say, when I look at the response by Reform to what's going on with Restore, is actually you should be feeling confident. You should be on top of this if you were going about this properly. What I fear, and what I have feared from the start with Reform, and and I have said it multiple times on this show, is that it is not, in fact, a serious operation, that it is very much driven fundamentally by reactionary opposition to the mainstream parties, which is justified. But actually, we're 2 years on now, just about from the last general election. If you're still in a position where you are struggling to find good candidates, well, that's a you problem. You can't blame Bristol
I don't know why anyone wants to be an MP. I keep being asked, like, by people, are you going to stand as a candidate?
The Greens keep on asking you, yes.
Yeah, Greens. Do you know what? Genuinely, they're the only party that has not asked me. I've been asked in the past, over the years. I'm fascinated.
The Scottish Nationals have asked you.
Okay,
that would be hilarious.
No, of the team, of the teams. I'm thinking of the World Cup right now. No, genuinely, I've always found that hilarious. You know,
you on the Count Binface ticket
genuinely, there is no party I could completely fully stand up. But I've said I will if it was Reform or it was Tory. If it was Tory coalition, which I think it will end, well, largely led by the Reform at the end of the next election, I would be a czar. I would go and be a czar till I don't want to be an MP. But I want to be a czar.
Yeah, that's not how how democracy works, right? You know what happens to czars.
No, I would be accountable to a government minister who was elected and to a prime minister, and to deliver on things like frankly, anything of the main things that I've been talking about over the years, whether it's benefits, whether it's immigration. Alison Pearson and I are basically competing over which one we want. Were they to be given to us? No, but I'm saying, would I have the expertise? No. But I would hire people who did have the expertise, and I would have the will to drive it through. And yes, if every single civil servant at that department needs to be sacked to get it done, then that should be done. I think we go holds barred. But I couldn't sign up to just one political party because I can't toe the line like that. Also, MP is a terrible job. I just want to get into another story. This is extraordinary. The horrific killing of Henry Novak, and we had the referral of his Vikram Dogwa. His sentence said life, 21 years minimum. But that's been referred as being too lenient. It could have been up to sort of 25 or 30. I was not personally shocked by that sentence. I didn't think that necessarily, given where we are with sentencing these days, that was too lenient. But happy for him to come out in a box. No issue at all with that. But it's absolutely extraordinary that Gurpreet Digwa, he was the brother. He's the one who made that 9-9 ankle. We've seen that video. It's like 12 seconds, about 12 minutes long, where he's just blatantly lying. He knows for a fact that even the judge in the sentencing remarks made it clear that the mother and the brother had both lied. They had perverted the course of justice. They'd lied to the police. They prevented him getting medical treatment. Clearly committing criminal offences. And yet they're not. The brother has not been charged. That was the police's decision not to send it to the CPS and for there to be no charges. That is unacceptable.
I think the difficulty here is going to be being able to necessarily go to a court with enough evidence to say that you can prove beyond all reasonable doubt that he knew that this was, let's be clear here. If he's hearing second-hand from somebody, we don't actually know whether or not his brother came up to him and said, he wasn't racist, but that's what we're going to say.
There's an audio tape in the police car when the killer and his brother are sitting in the car, speaking in Punjabi, thinking no one can understand them. Police were taping them, where they're talking about how they're going to, what they're going to do and all their lies. So he knew at that point he had lied, and when you don't tell the truth to the police under oath, I'm sorry, in a police interview, I'm sorry. No, you're not under oath in a police interview, but
the only thing that I can possibly get from this is that they don't think that there is enough evidence ultimately.
Rubbish.
You might say that.
Sorry,
I don't know.
Number of, if you look at let's look at Southport, the pressing of charges of some of the cases there and the amount of evidence they had about, they think they could get that through a jury. A load of those cases would have fallen. I'm sorry, the police are sending it to CPS.
Wasn't the whole point of that they were forcing people to plead guilty? They were strong-arming them. That's a difference.
No, because they were going. No,
because they knew that people would count.
It has to have gone to the
CPS. They knew that people would. No, they absolutely knew that people would.
This was after they've sent it, the CPS have approved those charges to go to court. The police haven't, in this case, the police have not even asked the CPS to charge.
OK, in the case of Southport, we all know that there was a very clear political motivation for that, and that was to make examples of people, because if you're the state, and I don't actually care what the motivation was, you understand why the state would be saying we cannot tolerate lots and lots of people partaking in disorder. So it is a separate kind of mindset to this one.
I get that.
I think that he should be charged? From what I understand, understand? Yes. But this is what I'm telling you will have been the reasoning, that they will have felt that there isn't enough evidence for it to be like it. And I tell you what would be...
all the evidence we know right now is enough.
What would be the outcome and the outcry if he was charged, he was put on trial, and then he was found not guilty?
I don't care. It only has to be a more than 50% chance. It's easily, on the evidence we have, more than a 50% chance of him being convicted. End of. Nothing to discuss.
If there are any lawyers or police officers listening...
No, a leading lawyer, Marcus Johnson of PCD Solicitors, in the Quoted in the Mail today, said the evidence at the trial of Henry's killer, Vikram Digwa, also suggested the brother may have committed perjury, assisted an offender and obstructed police. I'm sorry. May have. Well, may have, because he has to say that. Well, he's not. He's not facing charges right now. So I'll say I've listened to the tape. I've watched the video. He did.
This is what I'm saying. Earlier on in the show, we put out the questions about the channel, and we got experts calling in. If there's anybody who might actually have a view, a lawyer, say, or a police officer with experience, then we know a lot of police officers listen.
Do that.
Call in.
Also, World Cup. Excited tonight? England's first match against Croatia in our group.
Absolutely. There's a chance we might win.
We're going to get through the group stage. I mean, I'm saying that. There's nothing wooden in here I can touch. We're going to get through the head. We're going to get through the wooden stage. That's wooden stage.
We're going to get through the wooden stage. It's all going really well.
Aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I think we are. I don't think we're going to win.
Because basically, if you could, I could get the team to the group stage. There are so many rubbish teams in this tournament.
Imagine now if we don't get through. That's going to be really embarrassing for Thomas Tuchel. He will. Well, he's leaving anyway. It doesn't matter. But no, I think we'll get through the group stage. Obviously, I'm an Englishman. I can't sit here and say we're going to win the World Cup. We're going to lose valiantly, and this is all I can do to try and therefore force the fates to give us something.
I can live with us losing valiantly. I just need it to be valiantly.
To France?
I need it to be...
Or Argentina? They're the favourites.
Don't. 11:28's time. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to get to your calls. Lots of you calling in on the Prime Minister, on Andy Byrne, and on just what's going on in the Channel and our defences. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. I promise I'm going to read out the Makerfield candidates very soon. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Carl Turner was a Labour MP, now an independent MP. He's going to be up in just a couple of moments. Also going to be talking to Grieving Gang survivor Sammy Woodhouse about what Louise Casey, the Baroness, has said about basically them being, all the survivors simply being utterly betrayed by a tick box culture in Whitehall. Yeah, something we've been knowing about for many years. Let's go to your calls on various different topics. 0344 499 1000 is a number to get in touch. Andrew is in Hertfordshire. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Really good. I hope you're well.
Always good.
Yeah, this Russian situation, you said, they can't do it. Unfortunately, Julia, they can. They killed the Skripals. They killed that poor man at the Arsenal football ground, we are in a very exposed place. We need to go to Ukraine, we need to partner with them, and we need to adopt the drone technology
absolutely. Listen,
and then we have to adopt Donald Trump's position, build, baby, build. We need to build the Royal Navy back to where it was aggressively. And we need to say to people, immigrants that arrive here illegally, they get £49 a week.
Yep.
You are, because you're a bedwetter, you're getting £49 a week, and that's the end of it.
This is the end of it. Yeah.
And I know a doctor that does those assessments, and they get given the money when they walk through the door. Because if they don't give it to them, they clear out, and then they have to shut the practice down.
Yeah.
So if you're on it, it's 15 of you go, and you're in for 2 minutes. They say it's all done, and you're out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And it's horrific. But that's it. To beat Russia, adopt the drones, invest in Ukraine, and then just build boats.
Can I say, you'll like this. This is interesting. That retired British couple, this is Jane and Alan Kelvey, who were on the boat that was had the warning shots fired at. They have now, in the last couple of moments, accused the Ministry of Defence of, quote, trying to shut the story down. They said that British authorities want to downplay the incident for fear it was inflammatory, and they simply don't accept that this was just sort of, run of the mill. They're saying that they say the MOD are trying to close the story down now, saying it was foggy and they were shooting flares up. It's rubbish. The MOD are saying they got us on the radio, our radio. We were right next to it. It didn't come on our radio. It wasn't a problem of fog. We could see him clearly, this boat. He could see us clearly. We didn't see any flares at all. They normally go bang and you see them. We distinctly heard the gunshot fire. That acts as a great deterrent. Look, they're being really clear. The MOD is trying to shut this story down, and it's actually not a story to be shut down.
Yeah, the thing is, Julia, is the most amazing thing is those people are about to be arrested, and Harmer will prosecute them for infringing the Russian captain's human rights.
No, they're not. But I appreciate the joke. Andrew, thank you for that. Daniel's on the line. He's in Epsom. Good morning to you, Daniel.
All right, Julia. All right, Benedict.
All right. Oh, Benedict got mentioned. He's happy there. Oh.
I'm just looking at the kind of Labour leadership contest, and sort of I'm listening to Burnham speaking, and then you've got Streeton coming out, and I do sort of look at the news. It's in the news every day, and I kind of think, like, what's the point of it all? Well, I think what
I mean, there's a good question. Answer on a postcard, everybody.
I just think when they interview them, they should say, right, we've got some major issues in Britain, haven't we? Yes, we have. Right, so are you going to leave the ECHR, Andy? No, I'm not. Oh, are you going to spend the money to get on top of policing and law and order because it's out of control?
No.
I haven't really got the money. Oh, are you going to get a grip of welfare? No, because I'm stymied by the same backbenchers that stymie.
Sally, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, so what I'm just asking, what is the point? If the next person, whoever it is, like bring in Jeff Bezos, right? If you're stymied at every turn and you haven't got any money and you're not willing to get rid of net zero or get on top of immigration, right? What is the actual point? Why won't a journalist just say to them, what's the point in you?
I say this, and I write columns about this stuff. Unfortunately, these people who I've known for many years, some of them, might see them at various Westminster events in the next few weeks, but, this summer season, but won't come on the show because they're all frit. But there we are. Daniel, thank you for that. 11:35 is the time. We'll ask our next guest after the break, Independent MP Carl Turner, what he makes of it all. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:36 is the time. Let's talk about all the big stories of the day now with Carl Turner. He's an independent MP after losing the Labour whip for Hull East. A very good morning to you, Carl.
Good morning, Julia. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure to have you here. I must ask you, I suppose, first of all, about this Russian warship firing on these warning shots at this retired British couple sailing across the Channel. They have just issued a statement basically saying, well, it's all being talked down, but it's the MOD talking it down, not them. The MOD, this is quite extraordinary words. They're saying the MOD is trying to shut the story down. This is Jane and Alan Kelvey. They say they want to downplay the incident for fear it was inflammatory. They say that the MOD is saying it was foggy and they were shooting flares up. They say that's rubbish. They're saying they got us on the radio. They say we were right next to our radio. This channel 16, this open channel where you can warn you're coming too close, get away. There was no warning. There was no fog. They could see a massive big frigate clearly. And they say, basically, this is the Prime Minister, this is the government trying to play all this down, to pretend this isn't a story. How much of a story do you think this is, and how much do you think this is linked to, two men apparently, paid by Russian diplomat to being convicted after firebombing the Prime Minister's homes and car, and indeed the seizing of that Shadow Fleet tanker by the Russians, sent by the Russians by the British Navy on Sunday. Do you think this is all part of the Russians basically, reacting to that?
Well, I don't know, Julie. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to start guessing, but it does sound incredibly worrying to me. And frankly, I do believe Jane and Alan when they say that, when they describe what happened to them in that yacht. Yeah. So it's worrying, and I would very much hope that the government are doing something about it. The problem we have, though, as your listeners will know, is we don't really have a government at the moment because Keir Starmer is not governing anything. Is finished, and that is a problem for the country, and that's why I say he's got to get out of there as soon as he possibly can.
Well, you're agreeing with Wes Streeting, his former health secretary, who resigned a little while ago now and has been saying he needs to go and he needs to give a timetable to departure. The expectation is that we are going to get the by-election results, early hours of Friday morning from Makerfield, and the polls, so it is close, but the polls suggest that Andy Burnham could be the winner. May not be. Wes Streeting is basically saying whatever happens, the Burnham needs to go. But we've had a number of statements made by the Prime Minister today, basically saying he's not going to go. In fact, can we play one of those clips, actually? Can we play the clip in which basically the Prime Minister says he's not going to walk away?
No circumstances.
I'm not going to walk away. I'm going to fight.
No circumstances you would step aside.
I'm not walking away.
Okay.
I'm going to fight. The question is, do we pull together and turn that around as a party and as a government, which is what I think we should do, or do we descend into a leadership race which will bring chaos with it? We know that. The last government did this.
Well, that's his argument, Carl Tony, because he's not going to walk away. We're just going to have chaos. It's not in the country's interest for us to have a leadership contest, but you think different.
Well, look, I'm not sure I do think different, but the first thing we need to do is decide who's going to win the election on Thursday, and that's a matter for the people of Makerfield. I don't think it's in the bag by any stretch of the imagination. I think we're fighting for every single vote, and on Thursday I'll be knocking on doors and begging and pleading for people to come out and vote for Burnham. That's what I'll be doing. I expect other members of the Labour Party.
And is that just because he's the Labour candidate, or because you want him as an MP so he can stand against Keir Starmer, win the leadership, become Prime Minister, and also, brackets, hopefully give you your the whip back and make you a Labour MP again?
Well, I'm not sure that Andy Burnham is going to be absolutely pure magic, but I expect him to be an awful lot better than Keir Starmer.
Why?
That's the first point. Well, because he'll carry the Parliamentary Labour Party in a very different way to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has tried to run the Parliamentary Labour Party. It's an important job of the leader of the party, in any party, to carry the Parliamentary Party.
What do you mean by carry? He'll do what they want.
No, I don't mean that at all.
Well,
I mean
what
the
do you
opposite.
mean by it?
Well, what I mean is when you get to a sort of a couple of percentage points of the welfare benefit bill, and the Parliamentary Labour Party say we're not putting up with that, 5 billion quid's too much, it's not happening, I'd expect Andy Burnham to be able to persuade the Parliamentary Labour Party in a very different way to Keir Starmer. And let me tell you why. I can only speak to my own experience. With Keir Starmer, it's been, if you don't like it, you know where the door is. If you don't like the idea of curtailing jury trials, which is the worst idea that any government could have ever come up with in the
among a lot of bad
history,
ideas,
among a lot of terribly bad ideas, if you don't like that, well, you're going to be suspended. If you don't stop gobbing off, I'm going to kick you out. That's the attitude of Starmer.
You think Burnham is going to be very different on that? I don't. I think most members. But hold on a second. I mean, this thing, Keir Starmer appears to be very strong when it comes to taking on difficult backbenchers like yourself, Cardona, who speak truth to power. He doesn't seem to be able to have the authority or the willingness to take on the likes of his own cabinet ministers. We've had this absurd situation where, by all accounts, Ed Miliband, the Net Zero Secretary, complete climate hysteric, one of the people who's part of the problem and why this country can't afford defence spending, etc., etc. I put it all on Keir Starmer, by the way. He's the Prime Minister and makes the ultimate decision. But he apparently won't even take a phone call from the Prime Minister to discuss a cut to his budget so we can spend more on defence. Now, if you're a Cabinet Minister and you don't take a call from the Prime Minister repeatedly, you, as far as I'm concerned, have resigned your job. Keir Starmer needs to sack him on the spot, and he can't because he's got no authority.
Correct. Absolutely. Spot on. Couldn't put it better myself. Keir Starmer has got to go because he has no authority. I've got more authority in the parliamentary. I'm not joking. I've got more authority. I'm not kidding. I'm being serious. In the Parliamentary Labour Party than Keir Starmer. Why? Because I managed to persuade 92 members of the PLP to support me and not support the government. That's the truth of where we are. It's as bad as that. Now, I don't want to be Prime Minister. I wouldn't have it gift-wrapped, Julia. But he says he wants to be. So if he is determined to stick his heels in, I'm afraid to tell you it's going to be a very bloody mess. Because there will be a contest, and the electorate, in my view, don't deserve a contest. The shenanigans of weeks and weeks of arguing about this and that.
You want it to be a coronation, and that's what Andy Burnham wants.
No. My point is the electorate can't stand this stuff, right? So if Keir Starmer is saying the electorate don't want this stuff, then he needs to accept that they don't want it and stand down. But it's a matter for him to decide.
Hold on a minute. If he goes, you either get a coronation or you get an election.
Yes.
You say you don't want a coronation election. What people don't want is chaos and lack of government. What they do want is firm government. But if they're not going to get it from Keir Starmer, then there needs to be either a coronation or election of a new leader.
Correct. But my point, Julia, is this. Keir Starmer says the country doesn't want the chaos that has happened in previous governments, i.e. shenanigans with elections of leaders and leaders having to stand down and new Prime Minister has been appointed without general elections. That's what he says. Well, if that's what he says, then he's got to stand by what he means by that and not force an election and hand it to somebody else who can do a better job. But he's not going to do that. He's going to be determined to stick his heels in, and I think he's telling the truth about that to Beth Rigby today. I think he will have a contest.
But hold on a minute. Even when, after Liz Truss resigned, we didn't have another proper contest and Rishi Sunak took over. It doesn't make any difference. The key thing is the British public don't really care who's in charge, as long as the person in charge can communicate with them. And I accept that Andy Burnham will be better at that. He's definitely got a better communication style than Keir Starmer. But crucially, they want somebody who can run the country well. There is no evidence that any of the contenders, and certainly leading contender Andy Burnham, will be any better at running the country. He doesn't think there should be massive cuts to benefits. He's not committing to find the money from cutting net zero and other things to get the defence spending, to make our country more safe. There's no evidence at all that he will actually deliver on the stuff that will actually make a difference to ordinary people's lives.
I think, Julia, it makes a big difference when the party in Parliament supports the leader. And I think Burnham will get that support.
They'll only support the leader if he does what they want, like carrying on increasing benefits. Look at these stats. I mean, listen, more than 500,000 people are claiming benefits, disability benefits, PIP, personal independence payments. 500,000 people just for anxiety disorders. just for anxiety disorders now. It's up by more than 30,000 from just a year ago, OK? It's going up every single day. I mean, tens and hundreds every day. We're looking at people getting it for minor ailments like acne, bedwetting, constipation, tennis elbow, minor allergies and the like. Not if I leave the house I'm going to die allergies. I mean, this is insane. We need to stop. There's been no effort by this government. I expect no effort by any Burnham or anyone else leading the Labour Party government to actually get on top of this madness, this insanity, and frankly, I would say criminality with taxpayers' money at a time when A, people need it back in their own pockets, or B, it needs to be spent on defence, or ideally both, if there's enough to go around. But there's no evidence that any of the possible contenders are going to take action to deal with that.
Well, I think if the leader, the potential new leader, Andy Burnham, or Wes Streeting for that matter, are the leader of the Labour Party, they'd go about managing the party in a very different way to Kira, and I think that's where it starts.
You can manage the Labour Party as much as you want. Labour MPs are not going to vote for those cuts. They think that the best achievement, we spoke to Al Carnes yesterday, thinks the best achievement of this government is scrapping the two-child benefit cap. By the way, a policy which Labour voters don't like.
There's a Labour argument to be made, Julia, for the welfare benefit stuff, right? The clue is in the name. We are the Labour Party. We exist as the political wing of the trade union and labour movement.
Working people.
That's what we're there. We're supposed to represent people who get up in the morning and go to graft.
But you don't.
We're not supposed to be the party for those languishing on benefits. But let me just talk to you about the benefits bill.
Very briefly.
Very briefly, it's about 340 billion. Right, per year. 177 billion is state pension.
Yeah.
So what do? Do you look at the triple lock? Well, I don't think you should, frankly, because I think if you've grafted all your life, you should be entitled to get a decent benefit when you retire because you paid into the pot.
Whether we can afford it or not.
What I do say, though, is people who've never had a job, like a kid I met the other day in my constituency surgery, 28 years of age, on the benefits as a result of depression and anxiety. Now, I'm sympathetic to mental health. I've been in a mental health hospital. I had a breakdown. So I'm sympathetic. But at 28 years of age, when you've never had a job...
On the scrap heap, absolutely.
And that's what we've got to do with people,
I'm with you on that.
Thank you for your time.
I just don't believe any of the contenders are going to do that. Carl Tanner, I so appreciate you joining us. I'm way out of time. Independent MP lost the Labour whip over standing up to answer this government. Benedict Spence, quick response to that.
No, he's absolutely right. Actually, you can't have a situation where the party of the working man is propping up people to not work. It just doesn't work.
Living next door, by the way, to the people who are going out to work every day. I'm going to have to read the Makerfield candidates now. Sorry, put the kettle on and just listen as quick as you can. The candidates are Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binfay's party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official Monster Ravy Looney Party, Robert Kenya, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. Done. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, we're going to be talking to one of the incredibly brave activists and survivors of the Rotherham child sex grooming scandal, Sammy Woodhouse. We're going to talk to her about why Louise Casey is basically saying grooming gang victims are being failed by Whitehall box ticking. That's up next. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Still getting your calls on air. Lots more to come. Don't forget, very excitingly, we have, because the Prime Minister is still at the G7 summit that closes today in Evian-les-Bains in France, we've got Deputy Prime Minister's questions coming up just after midday with David Lammy. That's going to be fun, isn't it? Do stay tuned for that. Right now, let's talk about, well, again, these stories are just so depressing. But I have to say, I think we always have to listen to this particular person. This is Baroness Casey, Louise Casey. She's basically been a Whitehall troubleshooter for pretty much every Prime Minister for quite a few years now, all different parties. But she has hit out at the failure of successive governments to fix serious problems, including things like the absolutely devastating impact of the grooming gangs. And she's basically said that officials are resorting to box ticking instead of actually tackling the problems, including the criminalisation of sex offence victims not being addressed. Let's talk to Sammy Woodhouse about this. She's an activist. She's also a survivor of the Rotherham child sex exploitation scandal. Good morning to you, Sammy.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, we know, not quite apart from the absolute abject horror of the grooming rape gangs and the huge, many thousands numbers of young girl victims and the failure of the authorities to tackle that, we also saw over that period girls were criminalised themselves, accused of being prostitutes, drug offences and the like, and often quite deliberately by their groomers to make it very hard for them to be taken seriously when they made allegations. But there's a big move now to sort of try and basically get rid of those convictions because they were such unfair convictions. These were victims, not offenders. And basically, Louise Casey is saying that the government is just abjectly failing on this stuff. Why?
Yeah, and it's so frustrating for me. I mean, as you know, I was a victim of sexual and criminal exploitation, so I do have a criminal record for that.
What's your criminal record for?
ABH. But I was, for example, taken for my 15th birthday to my first armed robbery. That were my birthday presents. So children, and this isn't just happening to girls, this is happening to girls and boys all across the country. Yeah. And yeah, they have been failed. You know, we have all been failed, and many of us still have a criminal record. And it is just a tick box exercise. It's not good enough. Now, I've been campaigning around criminal exploitation for probably about 14 years now. Yeah. I met with David Cameron when he was the Prime Minister in 2015 for a private meeting, and I said to him there's a problem in this country with children being criminalised. I've met with ministers, I met with Suella Braverman when she was the Home Secretary. There's no political party that can tell me that they didn't know this. In fact, it was a government member that actually called the campaign Sammy's Law because I was campaigning to have children pardoned.
Yeah, and this isn't just about sort of, for the sake of it. This is because it actually stops you getting a job. You have to declare a criminal record for a serious offence. But also, I mean, it's about the injustices. And we saw lots of the stories that have been highlighted. Even the parents. A dad threatened with prosecution when he was calling the police and trying to get his daughter out while she was being gang raped above a kebab shop. For goodness' sake, I mean, what criminal action will be? I mean, I'd do it. I'd kill people in that scenario to get someone out. I'd go to prison if I have to. But the injustice of it, and it's all coming out. But it's interesting, Louise Casey, she's written in the Times, and she's a woman, she really, when she was appointed by the Prime Minister after he was saying anyone who wanted a public inquiry into grooming gangs was just jumping on a far-right bandwagon, pressure from Elon Musk and others, we got that. But after he asked for a rapid review by Louise Casey, she's a no-nonsense, straight-talking, get-it-done kind of person. She went in, she met with lots of grooming gang victims and survivors, met with people like Maggie Oliver and actually talked to people. And she, I mean, her report, short, sweet, very clear. There absolutely needs to be a grooming gang inquiry. But she's written in the Times today saying this is symptomatic of a wider problem in Whitehall. There's a tendency, she says, to do just enough to demonstrate action without truly gripping and fixing the problem, ticking the box, leaving the underlying issue untouched. Recommendations are accepted in full. We've seen that a million times, haven't we? Action is promised, and then slowly it all goes quiet. But this is always about people's lives. Like, you know, it's not about your life. It's about other victims' lives. And no one seems to care. Is this still the issue, that actually they don't think you matter?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I went to the Home Office, he actually turned around and said to me, Sammy, we don't even need to put anything in place because your campaign has changed the country. They're absolutely ludicrous if they think that just having a conversation is going to change things.
Yeah.
Now, let me just tell you a couple of things, you know, how it can affect people. So you're right, you know, we can't get some jobs. You know, some people will be classed as a danger to children. I know some parents that can't even go on school trips with their children. So I have to declare on my home insurance or my car insurance that I am a criminal. I'm self-employed. I got a new accountant. He said, do you have a criminal record? And I actually kind of, you know, sat there with my mouth open. He said, Sammy, I know you are. I know your circumstances, but I have to ask you.
Yeah.
You know, we constantly have to repeat ourselves and relive things, whilst you've got these men and women, you know, the perpetrators of this, that have faced no consequence whatsoever. Now, let me tell you this, right? You know, when I exposed Rotherham, Julia, I was looking at 102 years in prison, right? Because I was the one exploited. And I said to the police, I want to be honest, I was committing crimes that he forced me to do. I want to tell you what those are. So I was looking at 102 years. It had to go to the CPS, and I sat there for weeks, you know, possibly facing going to prison. Do you know when they arrested him, he's now in prison for 35 years? Not one of those is for criminal exploitation. And when I said to the police, why aren't you charging for that? He said, Sammy, we don't need to because we've got that many offences against him.
No, but they do need to.
Full time. Exactly.
But also, I mean, it was really interesting. You know, we've had discussions often about, you know, the sentences people get. What amazes me, especially these grooming gang guys, when they do finally get convicted, it runs all their sentences for all these many rapes of many girls and exploitation and horrible abuse. It's concurrent, not consecutive. In America, they end up with like 250 years. Here, they get like 14 years, and they're out in half that time, in even less.
Yeah, I mean, when he was charged for offences, there was that many offences, they had to cut him. So I think I started off with, I can't remember if it was 11 or 14. Yeah. It got enrolled to 5.
Yeah, I mean...
there's so much that they're getting away with.
Yeah, exactly. And when we see what they're actually convicted of, it's a fraction, isn't it? Sammy Woodhouse, you can hear the music coming. Thank you so much for speaking out. We've got to fight to get you the justice, and you and so many other thousands of young women now, the justice you deserve after what happened to you as children. Sammy, thank you for that. So proud of everything you've done. Up next, Deputy Prime Minister's questions. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 2 minutes past midday. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, smart speaker, watching on YouTube, great to have at your company. Benedict Spence is also still with me, Conservative commentator. Going to go live to Deputy Prime Minister's questions. The Prime Minister, of course, still over at the G7 summit in France. Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy. This will be fun, I hope. He's going to be facing 6 questions from Claire Coutinho. She's the Shadow Energy Secretary. She's a pretty sharp cookie, isn't she? You may notice if you are watching on YouTube that pretty much all the MPs in Parliament today are wearing large white roses. These are in tribute to Jo Cox, the Labour MP, who was, of course, horrifically murdered by a far-right activist back not exactly 10 years ago today. So if you're wondering what those white roses are, that is why they are wearing them. Benedict Spence, I mean, Claire Coutinho is just about to get to her feet, we think, any moment now, so we'll go straight to her. But, I mean, the big question is, what do we think she's going to go on? Given that she's Shadow Energy Secretary, it's got to be some defence. It's got to be related to net zero.
Got to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll go straight to her right now, see what she's asking.
Acting for the official opposition.
On behalf of this side of the House, can I extend our condolences to the families of Jo Cox and Roy Hattersley. I know how much pain we felt on these benches when we lost Sir David Amess, and we share their pain today as well. Yeah. I also pay tribute to those who lost their lives in the Grenfell Tower fire, and I'd also like to congratulate Scotland on their stunning win and wish England the very best of luck for tonight. Now, Mr. Speaker, it is a great privilege to be standing here with one of the few survivors of Labour's original cabinet, who hasn't resigned on principle or been sacked in disgrace. I feel honoured. So can he start by telling me this? Why is the Labour government happy for Britain to get its oil and gas from Russia or Qatar, but not from Aberdeen?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, can I welcome the Shadow Energy Secretary to the dispatch box. It's always good to hear from someone who was the heart of the Treasury during the biggest fall in living standards on record. The Children's Minister in government that plunged hundreds of thousands of children into poverty, and the Energy Secretary who showed an unwavering commitment to the cause of net zero, even though she's now forgotten that. Don't believe everything you read in the papers. The Prime Minister and the Energy Secretary have been discussing cutting bills by over £100. We've got our Warm Homes plan lifting millions of families out of fuel poverty and securing enough energy projects to power 23 million homes. She was the Energy Secretary who left our country exposed to global fossil fuel markets. We're delivering clean energy security.
Mr. Speaker, bills came down £500 under me. They've gone up £300 under these guys. And this is nonsense. His party are banning new oil and gas licences in the North Sea. And these guys over here, they're no better, because this is the same policy that the SNP championed for years. It is pointless virtue signalling, and it's destroying well-paid jobs. So can he tell the House how many jobs have been lost in Aberdeen since Labour came to power?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I remember when the Energy Secretary championed net zero. She said in 2023, we cannot prosper, nor can our children flourish if we don't decarbonise energy. The Tories used to believe this 3 years ago. Now she's forgotten because they're desperately chasing reform, and we know it. Over 700 jobs were lost during the last 10 years when they were in power. Production fell 75% over the last 25 years. We've secured over £900 billion worth of investment to support more jobs by taking control with renewables, and there are over 100,000 jobs in Scotland supported by clean power. We're building on that, led by the Great British Energy, headquartered in Aberdeen.
Mr. Speaker, let me help him out. 1,000 people are losing their jobs every month in places like Aberdeen South because of Labour's policies. They say those oil and gas workers can get new green jobs, but what they don't say is those salaries pay half as much. So can he tell the House how he would feel if the government forced him to take a 50% pay cut?
Deputy Prime Minister.
The Honourable Lady used to be an investment banker, and she's got her facts wrong. Oil and gas is coming out of the North Sea 24/7. In the first 3 months of this year, 52 million barrels of oil came out. 44 million barrels equivalent of gas came out. We're not turning off the taps. It's part of a mixed economy. It will support existing oil and gas fields throughout their lifespan, making changes to exploit neighbouring fields. But we do want to create more jobs, and that's why we're going to continue to invest in renewables. She knew this 3 years ago. She's changed her mind because she's chasing them.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him about pay cuts, and they should care, because if the Mayor of Manchester gets his way, I'm pretty sure half the front bench are going to be getting a pay cut pretty soon. Mr. Speaker, this is serious. The world is getting, Mr. Speaker, the world is getting more dangerous. Yet last week, the Prime Minister asked the Energy Secretary to help fund the defence of our country, and he ghosted him. Let me repeat that. The Energy Secretary refused to meet the Prime Minister on a matter of national security. Why hasn't he been sacked?
Prime Minister.
Stop reading the papers, I'd say to the Honourable Lady. I certainly don't like papers. Mr. Speaker, when the Defence Investment Plan is published, it will set out, this is important, it will set out how every government department is contributing to defence, including the Energy Department. We will always put national security first. The party opposite still don't get it. Families worried about their bills going up because of a war in the Middle East, that her leader said she'd jump into feet first.
If everything's so hunky-dory, why did half his defence team quit last week? Mr. Speaker, they won't find the money to keep our country safe, so let's go through some of the things they can find the money for. Millions of pounds to build solar farms in the Congo, tens of millions of pounds on an experiment to dim the sun, and they are turning down £25 billion in tax revenue from the North Sea to please their out-of-control Energy Secretary. Does he really think that any of that is more important than defending our country?
Deputy Prime Minister.
We've said that more spending on defence is our #1 priority in this spending review and the next spending review. But she wants to talk about resignations. Let's just remind ourselves. The Tory Defence Secretary that resigned in the last government, remember for Stone, who was sacked for breaching national security. The Tory Defence Secretary, Michael Fallon, who resigned over sexual harassment. The Tory Defence Secretary who admitted hollowing out the Armed Force Services for 14 years, that was Ben Wallace. We've got a Prime Minister securing jobs and investment in the G7. We've got a Chancellor raising the minimum wage. We've got an education sector Secretary cutting costs for childcare, and we've got an Energy Secretary cutting energy bills by over £100. We're proud of that record.
If everything is fine, why is he here? Let's face it, this is, he wasn't here last week, was he? Let's face it, this is a government on life support. And what's their grand plan now? They want to, let me get this straight, they want to make the job-destroying Energy Secretary Chancellor. They want to bring back the former Transport Secretary who resigned for nicking phones. They want to replace him with the former Deputy Prime Minister who resigned for dodging taxes. These are all pointless distractions. So here's a better idea. Why don't they cut welfare, fund defence, make energy cheap, and back the North Sea?
Deputy Prime Minister.
It's thin gruel. It's very thin gruel, Mr. Speaker. I'm here like she is because I'm standing in for the Prime Minister and the leader of my party. I'm proud to serve this Prime Minister and proud of what this Labour government is delivering. More rights for working people, the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation, the biggest boost to defence spending since the Cold War, and lifting more children out of poverty in a single term than any British government in history. The party opposite can make all the noise they want. They don't want to talk about the economy because it's growing. They don't want to talk about the NHS because waiting lists are falling, and they don't want to talk about immigration because they lost control of our borders and net migration is down under us 82%. They had their chance, they blew it. We're building a stronger, fairer Britain.
Well, those are the first exchanges of Prime Minister's questions there after tributes paid by both David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, and Claire Coutinho, the Shadow Energy Secretary, standing in for Kemi Badenoch. Of course, tributes paid to the MP Jo Cox, who was murdered 10 years ago, actually 10 years ago yesterday, but the tributes paid today, but also to Roy Hattersley, the former Labour Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Leader, who also had died this week at the age of 93. White roses being worn by all sides of Parliament, very large white roses, all in tribute to Jo Cox. Benedict Spence is here to discuss what happened at Pingpies. I'm a big fan of Claire Coutinho. She's a sharp cookie. I mean, we basically had her whole resume, didn't we, from David Lammy? Yes. You know, she was at the Treasury. She was an investment banker. You know, she's a clever cookie. I don't know if necessarily she landed any punches there.
It didn't feel like it, did it?
David Lammy was very... I mean, David Lammy definitely learnt his lines. I mean, if only he'd learnt it better when he did Celebrity Mastermind, and he would have known who Henry VIII's son was, or whichever way the question went. But we preceded him. But there was a consistency here, which is that, you know, particularly we're talking about energy, her speciality. Why? It's a question Kemi Badenoch asked before. Why is the government happy for Britain to get its oil and gas from Russia and Qatar? I mean, breaking our own sanction rules, getting it when it's been basically refined by India under sanctions and then sent to us, but not Aberdeen. Talking about those job losses, 1,000 people losing jobs every month in places like Aberdeen. No, there is a by-election in Aberdeen South tomorrow as well. We talked lots and lots about the by-election in Makerfield, but this is Stephen Flynn, the SNP, who's an MP but who's gone to be an MSP, going to be in the Scottish Parliament and in the Scottish Government in Holyrood. But she was basically... She also had that dig about energy... The Energy Secretary and Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband refusing to meet the Prime Minister. Why has he not been sacked? Did she lay any punches there?
Well, in terms of the actual rhetoric and the style, I don't think it will have woken anybody up. I mean, it's quite clear that Kemi Badenoch is sort of head and shoulders above most other people when it comes to this. And that's not actually a criticism of Claire Coutinho. Kemi Badenoch practices for this sort of thing. You know, being good at the rhetoric is one of the reasons why she stands out. Claire Coutinho is good on policy, broadly speaking. We know that she's a very reliable performer. In terms terms of the actual questioning, these are all things, in fact, that you and I have discussed throughout this show.
Ad nauseam.
Yeah, there was nothing sort of massive sort of curveball where everybody sat up going, oh, that was unexpected. But no, these are, I think, fairly straightforward questions that everybody can see the government has to answer, doesn't really have an answer for. It sticks to, as you say, it's tried and tested lines.
But it is worth carrying on.
Oh, yeah, you have to keep on making the point. You have to keep on chipping away.
And this is what happens during election campaigns when we who are all paying attention, we get bored out of our mind. Oh, my God, not that again.
Yes, but it has to be done.
But that's the first time someone else will have heard of it.
Yeah, and I mean, as one other thing that it must be said that's happened across Keir Starmer's time as Prime Minister is stories can move on very quickly, and he almost then feels like, oh, I've got away with that last disaster because a new disaster has just landed on my lap. But everybody, you know, Claire Coutinho was talking about, you know, where in fact are the former frontbench members of the defence staff in this country. They're not here. They've resigned. How can you say, therefore, that you're taking this particularly seriously? Yeah, Ed Miliband also wasn't there, as far as I could tell. You know, but the question is being asked: how on earth can you have somebody who is basically anybody less than your Chancellor who can face you down, and not even that in most cases? But you've got the Energy Secretary here not actually answering your call, not prepared to meet you because he's not really prepared to negotiate on certain things.
Which again,
and what
he should be sacked.
He should be sacked.
Here's the thing: I want to know how many people genuinely, and sorry, all cabinet places, shadow cabinet places, deputy leader of the Labour Party, they can basically be decided to a certain extent by the party membership.
Yes.
No, cabinet, that is decided by only the Prime Minister. The idea that my boss would say, I need to talk to you about something, and I just go, I'm just going to completely ignore him.
Yes.
Do you think I'd be on air tomorrow? No. Wouldn't even occur to me that you would simply not take a call from your boss.
The only one that I can ever think of is there's been a handful of chancellors, if that, who had a huge amount of power.
Gordon Brown
being
Gordon
a big
Brown
example.
used to not let Tony Blair see the budget until the day before.
Beyond that, but let's be clear, Rachel Reeves is no Gordon Brown. I mean, and Gordon Brown does not have the best record ever.
All this stuff about Andy Burnham when you said he was misrepresented about, you know, you shouldn't be in Hoxley, the bond markets. Weirdly, she seems to have got herself into a position where the markets are so terrified of what comes after her, they've decided she's the worst of, well, the best of a load of terrible options. And she's kind of playing those cards at the moment, hence the refusing to do what she has to do to get the money for defence. But I mean, the idea that if she's the best you've got...
But this is what I think Claire Coutinho was pointing out, which is, you know, the Prime Minister is not here. You've got, you know, David Lammy answering the questions. But as you say, could he face down his own Chancellor? Can he face down his Energy Secretary? His Defence Secretary just cut the legs out from underneath him. It would matter if he wasn't already, in most people's views, the former Prime Minister who's just there. The only one who seems to think that he can keep on going is the Prime Minister. But because of the nature of the Labour Party and the disparate factions within it, and frankly, the lack, I think, of not ambition, but talent, frankly, or enthusiasm, we're all kind of sat here going, do you know what? It's not the worst priced-in thing ever to think that he could, especially if the upcoming experiment in democracy tomorrow doesn't quite go Andy Burnham's way. It's not inconceivable he could still last on as Prime Minister because there's a dearth of anything else.
And they can't agree on what they want. And at the end of the day, again, this is the thing, as the Prime Minister has said in this interview this morning, you know, he says he's not going to walk away. He says he's going to fight under no circumstances, he says. And crucially, he says, you know, the question is, you know, do we pull together and turn that around as a party and as a government, which is what I think we should do, or do we descend into a leadership race that will bring chaos with it? We know that the last government did this. He has got a point there, again, but it's rested on the proviso that he can pull the party together and he can get the government going. There is no evidence that he has the ability, the wherewithal, the authority to do that. But this thing, Claire Coutinho's final question is very simple. Why don't they cut welfare, find the money for defence, make energy cheap, and you start drilling the North Sea? Any government that is not willing to do those things, if you don't get rid of the net zero madness, if you don't actually fund the defence, if you don't cut the burgeoning welfare bill, you are not a serious government.
What I would say is when people talk about, you know, not wanting to have a leadership contest because what does it do? At the very least, when you were offered the option of Boris Johnson instead of Theresa May, he offered something different. When it was Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, it was different competing visions. Nobody actually believes that Andy Burnham will do anything that radically different from Keir Starmer, or indeed that Wes Streeting would, or anybody. The only thing that you can imagine is they increase borrowing and spending and taxing just a little bit more, but within certain parameters, because they are worried that the bond markets will
already the unaffordable parameters.
Exactly. So there's no difference in a view there.
But there is the argument that Andy Burnham is a better communicator. He's much more likeable. The thing about Keir Starmer, if there was a view that, look, I don't think anyone loved him. I do know some people who go, no, he's great. He's like all these people, perfectly pleasant in real life.
Yes.
Perfectly nice in real life. Gordon Brown, genuinely terrible. You put him behind a lectern, just wooden robot.
Yeah.
In
He's
real
a nice
life,
guy, though.
one-on-one, absolutely loved. I mean, really, apart from when he was throwing stuff at his staff if he didn't get what he wanted, and very shouty. But you know, in terms of socially, he was actually a completely different person. So you can sort of see, you know, why he had a lot of loyalty for a lot of people behind the scenes. But the thing about, you know, Keir Starmer is that there was an element where he's very, very boring, he's very, very wooden, got quite good hair, but, you know, but he's going to be competent, and we need a little bit of calm and competence. He's not competent. He's blatantly, openly, he's unable to do it. He's simply not got the wit. He's got a lot of things on paper that suggest he's clever. He's not got a sharp mind.
Yeah.
He does not got a quick mind. He can't. He doesn't believe in anything. Doesn't know anything. He doesn't care about anything. He's just I would say, it's just an empty, donated suit from Lord Ali. There is an element where, okay, if you've had the same policies, could someone like Andy Burnham in a T-shirt? Although, do you know what, Andy Burnham? Could you put on a suit and tie? Could we please accept that when you're Prime Minister, I do expect you to be in a suit and tie most of the time?
Yeah, she looks decent in a suit and tie is the ironic thing.
But I do know, but is he going to be different? Is the ability to communicate that and speak human, is that going to make a difference if people still have less money in their pockets and they can't afford their energy bill, and they're still having people interfering in their lives in every possible area, whether it's whatever they're thinking, and that we are unable to defend our country? Is being Mr. Nice Guy Burnham going to make a difference?
The structural issues that face this country were already apparent before COVID. That's one of the reasons Brexit happened. Post-COVID, you can't spin your way out of these things anymore. The amount of money that this government spent during COVID, the laws that it brought in, just forcing things through, the change ultimately in political culture that the political establishments of this country ushered in, now mean that no, you can't in fact tell people pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, it's not happening. All of the projections about an uptick in crime, about the breakdown in social cohesion, education, the pressure that would be put on the health side, all of these things have started to come to pass. The concerns about the armed forces that were being predicted 10, 15, 20 years ago have come to pass. We're now at that point, and that is why I think
the Labour have been left holding the parcel.
It's why
and
there's
a bomb in it.
It's part of the reason that the patience of the public, which lasted a long time under the Conservatives, ran out much quicker under Labour, because the public don't have that confidence or that patience, because they can see the reality now on their doorstep. That's the difference.
Love to hear your thoughts on all that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Lots of you getting in touch about that Russian warship firing warning shots at a British yacht in the English Channel. What should the Britain's response be? MOD very much playing it down. We know this because the pensioners who were shot at are saying a lot of the things the MOD is saying are simply not true. There was no radio contact. It wasn't misty. They could see this boat. They weren't going to hear this boat. And yes, there were shots fired. You cannot see this as anything other as a Russian reaction to the conviction of these two Ukrainian, Romanian men paid 2 or 3 grand by a Russian diplomat to basically firebomb the Prime Minister's house, and the seizing of that Russian oil tanker from their shadow fleet on Sunday. I mean, the reality is, though, if we're going to play down this reaction, we're sending a message to the Russians. We're not taking it seriously. They are testing us. We are failing that test every single hour of every day right now. We need to stop failing that test. I want to hear your thoughts on the Prime Minister saying he is not going under any circumstances as well. Do get in touch. 0344 499 1000. Your numbers, that's the number to ring, and your calls are up next. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK, with the big kickoff just around the corner.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Thank you so much for your company. 12:27 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. John is in Dorset. John, you want to talk about the party leadership?
I was talking about a possible coup. The theory going around at the moment, it would take a mass resignation of cabinet to tip Starmer over the edge.
Yeah.
Apparently, at the last little gathering at Chequers, the number of faithful was diminishing. Oh, yeah. And I'm wondering, apart from the chancellorship being promised to Millirat and various other, Angie to become deputy PM, how many cabinet ministers are currently on backstabbing duty on the basis that Burnham has promised them their jobs back if they resign?
Oh, well, of course. I mean, there's been loads of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. There always are. The Prime Minister says, I'm not going to walk away. He said 2 or 3 times, under no circumstances. Look, the thing is, he may not have a choice about that. If we do see Burnham back in the House of Commons on Friday, and then in a situation where we're told there could be, 100 signatories straight away from MPs saying the Prime Minister has to go, maybe possibly resignations. But again, we predicted a lot of that after the local elections. Barely any of them left.
That's true, but it seems to me that the legacy from Starmer is the poison chalice that Burnham's taking up, as you've already indicated. Yeah. He's got nothing to play with. He's got no leverage. He's got no money. All he's got is a bunch of backbenchers who are going to hang on to their 98k a year jobs come hell or high water.
And this is part of the problem, isn't it? Like, what can change? I mean, the other caller making that point as well. But here's the thing. A lot of people I was hearing, so it was an event last night, a lot of people, lots of different parties last night, that actually a lot of talk about, well, maybe it's not Burnham. Don't think anyone thinks it's going to be Wes Streeting. Certainly the party wouldn't support him. But if you did have either John Healey, the Defence Secretary who resigned, who says he's not going to run for the leadership, but of course, he could always be persuaded for the good of the country, the line they always use. Al Khan's, the Armed Forces Minister, we had him on the show yesterday. A lot of people very impressed with him. I've been very impressed with him. Not impressed with the fact that he thinks the 2-child benefit gap is a good thing, but there we are. But what if it was one of them?
Well, what's a Confucian curse? May you live in exciting times or interesting times?
Do you think they'd be better off with a coronation and doing it quickly and smoothly, Burnham just takes over, or with no other challenges? Or do you think they'd be better off having an actual election?
No, I mean, at the moment, to paraphrase an old military term, we're in a fecal storm. And when it hits the fan, it doesn't get distributed evenly. Trust me, I've been there.
OK. I mean, I'm trying to picture it right now, John. Do you think that in a few weeks' time we will have a new Prime Minister?
I think we will. I'm not sure what the country's going to be like while they sort themselves out.
Yeah, very good point. Well, that's kind of Keir Starmer's argument, isn't it? Like, this is not the time to, but then that was Boris Johnson's argument as well over Ukraine. I mean, they can't keep using that argument, can they? I mean, bearing in mind, we were already at war. It was already in the spring of 1940 when Winston Churchill took over. So, there could be arguments for it. John, great call. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely picture in my head. Chris is in Hereford. Chris, you want to talk about, and again, this is very much related to all of this, this madness of this ballooning welfare bill, and I mean the utter madness of the fact that we've now got more than 500,000 people claiming PIP, these personal independence payments, just for anxiety. And it's anxiety included over things like, you know, bedwetting. Didn't know that was a thing for adults. Acne, and having allergies that aren't life-threatening. I mean, tennis elbow, I kid you not, is included in this.
Well, yes. Good afternoon, Julia. How are you?
Afternoon, my darling.
I've been on your show before, and I explained that I've had a serious heart condition.
Yep.
And I'm basically waiting to go in for surgery.
Yeah.
No,
you still haven't had it yet?
No, I haven't had it. It's been 4 months. But basically, it's now I've been told now I have cardiovascular disease, and there's no cure, absolutely no cure for that. What doctors have told me is let's go ahead with surgery, but it's just the quality of life. It's just basically, I'm not being funny, but I'm not being morbid or anything. I may not even see my retirement.
Yeah.
And I'm working at the moment. I'm still working, and it really, really upsets me when I'm contributing to the system.
Yes.
And knowing that I may not even see my retirement. And
other people are sitting at home with bad skin, a sore elbow, and I mean, I think it infuriates all of us, but I think especially someone like you. And and also I know numerous people who are disabled, and a good friend who works at benefits office. You've got a number of people, in wheelchairs, blind people who still go out to work and do the right thing, and also it's good for them as well. But I mean, this is it. We've got digestive issues and allergies, I kid you not, are on the list. More than 3,000 claims for irritable bowel syndrome, 89 for food intolerances, 26 for allergies with no risk of anaphylaxis, chronic fatigue syndrome, 33,000, sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is just like, you just wake up, you snore, everything. There's 3,900. Addiction, it's 12,000, 13,000. Long COVID, I mean, East and West Coast of America and Britain, mostly London and the home counties is where you get long COVID, 6,000 claims. We've got 1,800 claims for headaches, 33 for ear infections. We've got 52,000 for non-specific back pain, 442 for tennis elbow, 114 for golfer's elbow, and 2,800 for gout. Don't you only get gout if you just get ridiculously fat, in which case isn't the solution to lose weight? I mean, Chris, that must infuriate you.
It does. As I said, your heart is the most important organ in your body. If that gives up, you've had it, sort of thing.
Yeah. And you're working.
And I'm still working. I'm still concentrating. It's very hard when I'm working. I get very out of breath, very tired very quickly. Yeah. But I need to go out, Julia.
And what are you doing for a job?
I need to go out, because if I don't go out, it'll drive me around the bend.
Oh, absolutely. What do you do for a job, Chris?
Oh, well, I work in retail.
Retail.
Just working.
Yeah. I mean, you're not on a building site or anything like that. You wouldn't understand what
the doctors have told me I can't do anything like that. I can't lift anything heavy or even because it will strain my heart and that'll be it, sort of thing. So.
Chris, look, I'm going to wish you the best. I'm sure everyone does. I'm so sorry you still haven't got that op. I mean, that sounds very, very worrying indeed. Let's prioritise people. What really, really matters. Chris, thank you for that call. Benedict, I mean, we haven't talked so much about these figures. Came out yesterday, and there was a lot going on yesterday. We've got this lot going on today as well. Yeah. But this data, I mean, again, it's not just you've got 500,000 people claiming this benefit. You've got them claiming it just for anxiety. In my day, when I was younger, I first writing about these things, it was always backache because you can't do anything. Then it was stress. And now it's anxiety. But, I mean, these people shouldn't be saying, I'm sorry, I want not only the people claiming this to have their money gone tomorrow, I want the people who approved it. I want them out of a job.
Yeah, the thing is...
I'm not allowed to claim benefits because they've been sacked.
The thing is, it almost doesn't matter how justified or unjustified their claims are.
Can't afford it.
Yeah. You just need to look at the numbers. And this is the case with so much when it comes to welfare spending or all sorts of other spending. You can get lots of people who will give you very credible arguments as to why. Ultimately, there comes a point, though, where you're spending so much that the answer just has to be, I'm sorry, but can you count?
No, are you in a wheelchair? Do you need an adapted car? Yes, you need to have a home that you can get in and out of and a bathroom you can use.
Of course.
We're a civilised country. People who can't afford to have that work done themselves aren't millionaires. Then absolutely, I want to help pay for that. That is what we pay. Go to work and we pay taxes to live in a civilised society for. The other stuff is like, well, I'm sorry you've been dealt a bad hand. I'm sorry about those things. What's it got to do with me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What has it got to do with me and lots of other people who are struggling? My audience right now who get up to work every single day, you talk about this alarm clock Britain in this really patronising way, but there are people who live next door to these people who are doing sod all day, swinging the lead, taking the bit. A lot of them don't even think they're swinging the lead because they think they're entitled to it, because we've now got an entire culture in this country, particularly young people, who think that, you know, if you don't feel like it, you don't go to school on a Monday morning. Well, why on earth did anyone think they'd be able to hold down a job?
Increasingly, it's not just young people, though, because this is now multi-generational.
And it's and there's no shame, and there should be no shame. If you need help, you need help because no fault of your own. You know, there should be no shame attached whatsoever. And absolutely, we should be proud to help. But there should be shame attached if you could, you know, lift yourself up and you could get your energy. We need to bring back more of this. We need to bring back. People saying, don't be judgy. Why? You should absolutely be judging people.
Life is about making judgments.
And if your problems are self-imposed because of the decisions you have made, knowingly you continue to make them, I'm sorry, then you live with the consequences, because you're a grown-ass adult, frankly, and you can live with the consequences of your poor decision-making. I don't think everyone else should have to pay for it, because they are having to live with the consequences of your decision-making by not having enough money to look after their family, take their, you know, buy a new car, take their kids on holiday, or even, frankly, to pay the energy bill these days. It's simply not fair. 12:37 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about various crime cases, including why Henry Nowak's killer's brother has not been charged with perverting the course of justice. We'll talk to Danny Shaw, who's an expert on these things. Up next, this is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. Coming up in just a couple of moments here on Talk, we are going to be talking about the World Cup. England finally get to kick off their World Cup campaign with the match starting at 9 o'clock tonight. We'll be talking to Talk Sports World Cup reporter Max Scott about that live in the studio. First up, though, let's talk about a couple of cases very much in the news, criminal cases, with Danny Shaw, who's a policing crime and justice commentator. Good afternoon to you, Danny.
Afternoon, Julia.
Hi. Two stories. I mean, both of them, I think, really upsetting people. One of them, of course, the fury of the decision not to bring charges against the brother of Henry Nowak's killer after we heard the 999 call. We've seen what's happened in court. After he basically helped his brother by lying to the police about Henry Nowak having been racist towards them and attacked his brother. This, of course, is Gurpreet Digwa. Even the judge in the sentencing remarks for his brother, who obviously was the man who actually killed Henry, Vikram Digwa, he actually said it very, very clear that there had been lying. And now we've got a senior lawyer, Marcus Johnston of PCD Solicitors, saying that evidence at the trial of the killer suggests that his brother may have committed not just perjury, but also assisted an offender and obstructing police. But Hampshire Police has said they've not asked the Crown Prosecution Service to consider any case whatsoever against Gurpreet. Why not?
Well, I think Hampshire Police will have to answer that question. I can only surmise that this is because to prove the offence of perverting the course of justice, you not only have to show that the individual committed the act, which he certainly did. He certainly made the phone call and told a false story, but that he intended to interfere with the administration of justice. He intended to obstruct or deflect in some way.
So it's the motivation.
I can only think, Julia,
did he do it knowingly? Yeah.
Did he do it knowingly, or was he spun a story by his brother Vikram and believed
we've got
Vikram?
that tape of them speaking in Punjabi in the back of the police car.
I think that was afterwards, though, wasn't it?
But it was afterwards. But then
after the 999 call.
But at that point, he knew that he was lying and his brother was lying.
Well, he knew at that point, but he didn't when he made the. All I'm saying is,
but I'm just saying, at the point at which he doesn't then tell the police, surely.
Yeah, look, I want to say two things. Firstly, I wasn't at the trial, and I don't have the reasoning of the police. But what I think is probably they felt that it's a bar too high to prove that at the time he made the call, he knew that it wasn't the truth. That's what I can think. The other thing I should say is that Gurpreet Digwa has been charged with additional offences, weapons offences relating to, I think, the day after. And also his father, and also Vikram Digwa has also been charged with other offences. So we just to be a bit careful, because there are ongoing criminal proceedings.
True,
in this
but I mean, pointing out, the judge had told Vikram Digwa in his case, when he talked about when he was giving his sentencing remarks, he said, "Your brother did much the same. You joined your brother in relating these lies to the police." And he said in this covert recording in the back of the car that Vikram Digwa, the killer, had decided to try to cover it up. And this lawyer, Marcus Johnson, has said if Gurpreet was the only other party, it follows he was also covering up what happened. I mean, I think a lot of people just feel like, again, this is the two-tier policing we see where we just again and again we've got a situation where...
I don't think it is, Julia. I mean, Vikram Digwa's been prosecuted, charged and convicted of murder. His sentence is now being referred to the Court of Appeal to see if it's unduly lenient. But he's been charged with extra offences. Gurpreet's also been charged with weapons offences, as has the father. A decision's been made not to prosecute him for perverting the course of justice. There may be some good reasons for that. It may have been a marginal decision. I'm not in the head of Hampshire Police. I don't think it's an example of two-tier policing or two-tier justice.
Well, I accept all of those points. However, we've seen the cases and other cases where people, for instance, social media, that people are being charged, they're referring it to CPS, they're approving the charges, and yet when there's, you would think well below a 50% chance of getting a conviction, but they're still going ahead with them. So I think a lot of people will see it very differently. We haven't got much time, so let's talk about another case. And I know you will have been, look, anyone normal would have been as horrified as we were about the horrific death of little baby Preston David, just 13 months old. He's been put up for adoption. Very sadly, his mother had actually been convicted and sentenced behind bars. His sister had been adopted by the grandmother, who wasn't able at that time to take the brother, but wanted them to wait. But given to this gay couple who adopted him, by all accounts, they simply wanted the child to abuse. Can't go into the detail because I try and keep this stuff out of my head, because it is so that what happened to this child is so beyond horrific. They've both been convicted over his death on Monday. But there's been a real concern that there was a failure to act on safeguarding concerns for fear of causing offence. This is what Laura Trott, the Shadow Education Secretary, is claiming. She's saying that Oldham Council's equality policies meant that staff failed to properly scrutinise the same-sex couple before the baby died, because he constantly was taken to hospital. He was not looking in good health. He'd been a happy, healthy baby, and then he wasn't after just a few weeks with this couple. And that actually, if they'd been treated the same way, as really, any other couple would have been seen, but because they were gay, they wanted to be PC, they didn't want to be accused of homophobia, they didn't scrutinise this adoption strongly enough, and this baby could have been alive. Do you think that's possible?
Well, there's going to be an inquiry into that. I certainly think it seems from what I've read that there was a lack of curiosity and an acceptance of what the couple were telling social workers and others when the concerns were raised. I've seen this before in other cases, when sometimes a couple or a mother or father, they present very well to social workers or
nice
other
middle class
officials.
He was a teacher.
Exactly that, and they tell a convincing story, and the staff, perhaps through inexperience, perhaps through lack of because they've got so many other cases on going on, they don't take the concern seriously. It may be that there's also a concern that they didn't want to raise a concern because they didn't want to cause offence or then be the subject of a complaint against them, that they were discriminating against the couple because they were gay. I don't know. That's got to come out of an inquiry.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Julia, it's a concern, because social workers, police, probation officers should be able to raise concerns without the fear of being accused of being racist or homophobic or picking on people for whatever reason. They should be able to do that in a balanced and proportionate way. And have those concerns looked at. And so that would be a concern if that was a factor in this case. I don't think Laura Trott's saying it is definitively. She's raising a concern.
No, but there's also concern. I mean, I know lots of people, I'm sure you do, you know, in my personal life, who spent a long time trying to adopt. Very few happy, healthy babies come up for adoption. Huge number. If the baby is available for adoption, very tragically, often a result of a drug-addled mum, fetal alcohol syndrome, very, very horribly damaged. And a lot of parents just feel like they simply want to be parents, but they're not able to cope with what will likely be a very severely disabled child. Highly unusual. I mean, a number of couples, you know, that this couple, you know, appeared to get approved for adoption and got given a healthy, happy baby very, very early on. I have to say, I've got question marks. I mean, I know that some of my friends have gone through in terms of the adoption procedure, in terms of the attitudes. And again, we saw for years, didn't we, refusal to put your black children into families because, well, they have to go with a black family. They can't be with a white family, even though there's a white family desperate to make them be their mum and dad and be happy with them because of their political correct thinking. I do worry that, you know, this couple shouldn't have been approved in the first place.
Well, I mean, some serious questions have to be raised about that, because my understanding of the adoption process is that it's really rigorous. It takes a long time and it's very difficult to be approved.
Yeah.
So there are absolutely some... I mean, that is, to me, is the biggest failing in this. How were this couple approved in the first place?
Absolutely.
Given what happened to the baby. So that's where I think the focus should be initially. But let's not forget, two people were responsible for this case, and it was that couple.
But, you know, we've got people who positions of authority to try and keep these children safe for a reason. If they're not going to do their job properly, we need to know what's happening. Danny Shaw, always so good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Policing, crime and justice commentator. Benedict Spence. I mean, the case certainly of Preston Davey just shivers down you just...
Yeah,
the revulsion at
I
this.
constantly have to remind myself that there's a very good reason why my moral position is we shouldn't give our state the right to put people to death because of cases like, say, Andy Malkinson. Because we do get things wrong. Our police, as we saw in the case of Vikram Digwa, make mistakes very frequently. So we can't give our state that power. And then you look at the details of this case, and we aren't, as you say, going to read them out because they are just appalling, and you are just filled with rage. And you're sat there thinking, well, what benefit is there for life for these people? What redemption can there be? There can't. No. There can't be anything too stringent for them.
No,
honestly.
absolutely.
Severe.
Listen, let's cheer things up. We're going to take a quick break, and then we are going to be talking to TalkSport's reporter Max Scott about England's chances in the World Cup. Our first match kicks off in this World Cup campaign tonight at 9 o'clock. We're doing better than Scotland. Their kick-off being, 2 a.m. Their first match. But what are our chances? We'll find out from Max up next. Stay tuned.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. Let's cheer things up. Goodness me, an awful lot of misery around, isn't there? But let's talk about... I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm doing my best. World Cup, of course, it's already well underway. But finally tonight, England, one of our two home teams in this championship, is going to be kicking off 9 o'clock tonight. But can Harry Kane do the business, as he's been doing for Bayern Munich over the whole of the last season for England? In studio to discuss this, Conservative commentator Benedict Spence still staying here. And Max Scott, talkSports reporter, who apparently has just been telling me he's thrilled he's back in England for the World Cup and not over in the States, Mexico or Canada.
Honestly, I mean that down to my core, because there's no other place I would rather be during a major tournament than in England. And the thing that...
Do you mean the pub?
No, I don't. I'm starting work at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'm under strict orders from my partner to make sure that I'm at home getting some sleep. But the reason I say it is because I genuinely believe that, you know, I love my country, and I think that the great thing about it is that people, there's this sort of common cause that people genuinely gather around.
And it really does, it is fun. It's exciting. Yeah. Here's the thing, I've started, we've got a bit of a sort of sweepstake going for the guys here in the talk office. Just an awful lot, like people who normally would pay attention, not really getting completely engaged yet. I think part of this is that, it's on the other, okay, we're used to World Cups being somewhere else, but it's so disparate. I had 3 different opening ceremonies, by the way, all of which were absolutely dire. Who are we kidding? And a lot of the matches are not on a good time for us. I felt so bad for Scotland. Scotland's done worse than us, some of these. And so it's not the same as like, oh yeah, everyone finished work early, all round mine at 7 o'clock, and we can all watch the match together or go to the pub. I know lots of people are going to be staying up late. A lot of people just can't do it. You've got kids, you can't get the babysitter, all of that. It's been hard to sort of people get in it. Do you think the excitement is really going to start now, when we actually get both home teams having actually played a ball? I don't doubt it. And do you know what, Julia? I think that the games that happened last night and in the early hours of this morning really lit the touch paper, really got people going. Yeah. You've got some good matches. You've got Lionel Messi scoring a hat-trick, his first World Cup hat-trick. He's now the joint top all-time World Cup goal scorer alongside the great Miroslav Klose. Yeah. He scores a hat-trick. Quickly followed by a brace from Kylian Mbappe, who at the age of 27 is just 1 goal behind Messi in the all-time World Cup list. And then Erling Haaland in Norway's first World Cup since 1998. Erling Haaland's first World Cup of his career, announces himself with a brace. And so that gets the football juices flowing, because these familiar names that you want to perform did. Yeah. And it also paves the way for, you mentioned him, Captain Harry Kane, who has had a magnificent season in Germany, winning the League Cup double, scoring 58 goals in all competitions. That man can't walk on... Genuinely, you wouldn't even let him walk past a football pitch. He has to score. It's like in his blood. Yeah. Without a doubt. He's a machine. Now, the criticism for Harry Kane has been in previous tournaments that he's come in overcooked. The amount of football played, particularly when he was at Spurs in this country, there's too much football there. Spurs too reliant on Kane, and he'd come into tournaments particularly with back problems. Thankfully, I mean, this connection between England and Germany is incredible. We've got a world-class manager, and Bayern Munich have wrapped him in cotton wool. They had a 2-week break in the winter, and he himself, and Harry Kane is the least braggadocious character, and that's what I love about him. Is he genuinely? Because he does just seem to be like a genuine, just really good bloke. He's just a normal, lovely bloke. But even he is saying, I'm coming in, feeling the best, in my best form, and that fills me with a bit of confidence. So the match tonight is against Croatia, arguably our hardest match in this group. I mean, by the way, how many groups are there? About 5,000? I mean, how many teams are in this World Cup? There's 48 teams. This is the trouble, because it's supposed to be, technically it's the World Cup final, but it's not the final, is it? Because it's not been whittled down as much as it should have. So there are lots of quite, we've got, random team in Cape Verde. I mean, come on, who are we kidding? That said, there have been a few surprise results from some of the smaller teams. Give you a prediction for tonight, then. England are going to win 2-0. They're going to score very forceful there. Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot, Julia. This is my life and my career, so I'm saying a goal in the first 15 minutes. Take that, guys. We're going to hold it against him tomorrow. I'm going to say an early goal to settle the nerves. We're playing against a Croatia team who, yes, broke hearts in 2018 in that World Cup semi-final. Yeah. But sent us home. Their talismanic leader, Modric, is 40. Now,
you know, he's going to be a bit like Yoda on the pitch.
I was going to say, you calling 40-year-olds old?
Well,
she said as a 58-year-old, bit offended.
To captain a nation in a World Cup, he's a little bit on the older side. And I just sort of think we should be able to, energy-wise, do some damage in the first 15 minutes, and then I think there'll be a period of lull, and then England will score in the last 15 2-0.
Got to ask Benedict Spence. He's sitting there listening to all of this. You are a massive football fan, big Liverpool fan. You watch all the match. What do you reckon?
I mean, I think England are going to win tonight. I think they'll get out of the group. I don't think they're going to win the World Cup. I think England have got a decent team.
He's available for christenings, bat mitzvahs and weddings as well.
I think France are just too good. France are just too good. And the thing about France is because most of the French team is, in fact, the Paris Saint-Germain team, and they don't have to play very well in the season because they're playing in France. This is why they've won two. This is why they've won 2 Champions Leagues on the bounce, because they can rest 3 of the best forwards in the world throughout the league
still
campaign.
Have a top team.
And Barcola is a reserve for PSG. He was fantastic the other day. They're just.
Get him
I
on
just think they're
Talksport,
too.
Oh, no, he does know his stuff. We don't normally encourage him like this, Max, but he does know his stuff. I mean, we get out of the group. What's our route? How bad can it be? Because Brazil is possibly in our route.
Yeah. So what it looks like, if it all goes to plan, it would be Mexico in the first knockout game at altitude in Mexico City at the Azteca. That's going to be tough. Then it could be Brazil, but I'm not quite sure Brazil aren't what they once were. Morocco are the team to beat actually in that group. Yeah. But then it's a France semi-final. And that is where we've come unstuck a couple of times in recent years. As Benedict rightly describes them, they are a top world-class outfit. They're my favourites. But Thomas Tuchel has just got something about him.
He's a winner.
He's a winner.
I mean, I know he's not British. I would like us to only have British managers, but he's a Champions League winner. Yeah. He's taken it to the absolute top, and apparently he is going to be singing the national anthem.
Well, I've read that he said he would do it in the final, or if England win. And look, what I love about Tuchel is he's a self-professed Anglophile. He loves British film, British humour, British football, and so, look, we need the best in class. I agree. I'd love if England could produce a world-class manager. Yeah. Sadly, that isn't the case, and that's a question for the FA. For the time being, Tuchel will have to do.
I hate to tell you, Max, we've so enjoyed this conversation. We're going to be dragging you back in. I hope that's
great.
all right.
I'm looking forward to it, Julia.
Or if you're not available,
all summer, isn't he?
Just get Benedict in.
Yeah, Benedict in. He knows his stuff too. I mean, I never want to get too hopeful. I just never want to get too, because everyone always feels, it's. I mean, look, I'm old enough to remember when it was 30 years of hurt. It is now 60 years of hurt. I mean, look, to be fair, we've had